Suigan Riku is a high school student and avid gamer who attends Shinryu Private Academy, a school for the wealthy and elite. Despite his attendance at this prestigious institution, Suigan is not rich or wealthy and must work multiple part-time jobs to pay his tuition. During one of these jobs, he jumps into a pool to rescue his pet cat, despite being unable to swim. Fortunately, he is saved by Ray Riku, the stunning and popular daughter of a game developer, and develops feelings for her. Additionally, Suigan befriends a new girl while playing his online RPG of choice, Dungeon Century. But when the game is set to shut down, Suigan knows their adventures together will soon come to an end. However, he is shocked to discover that the online girl and Ray are the same person. Not long after, Ray gifts Suigan the game and must rescue her. Jinno Guardian follows Suigan as he navigates Gravebuster, uncovers its mysteries, and works to save Ray at Shinryu Academy. The scene begins with some girls discussing their school in the girls' dormitory. One of the girls says the school is built on top of an old graveyard, which another girl affirms. She tells them about a ghost sighting at the cemetery next to the male dorm. The third girl, who's sitting on the ground and shivering, screams no continuously because of how scared she is. Someone knocks on the door of their room, which surprises the three girls. The door opens and Riku Ray tells them softly that it's almost time for lights out. The girls call her name with admiration as she instructs them to clean up and get to bed. They reply, okay. Riku Ray closes the door and some girls jogging through the hallway with pillows in their hands greet her goodnight. She replies to them with a smile. Riku Ray looks at the moon through the window in her room. She thinks about how there are no changes to the dorm residence and how quiet the night is. She also thinks about what no one knows, which is the person who is fighting to protect the peaceful days. She looks to an area outside where a ghost-like boy and cat appear. The boy says hey and waves as they both disappear. She continues to think about the boy being in a completely closed-off world where no one's voice can reach. The midnight alarm bell rings. The moon turns red and begins to resemble a skull. A ray of light shoots into the sky and expands. The earth begins to split and a pyramid type of structure known as a mausoleum emerges. The symbol on the top of the mausoleum glows, and a treasure appears above it. Dark, shady beings with red eyes appear in massive numbers. They begin their movement towards the mausoleum to steal the treasure in the tomb. A cat named Wanchoi hisses towards the enemies. A boy named Riku Suigan calls Wanchoi to come over, and it climbs onto his shoulder, playfully tickling him. Riku Suigan looks out and notices the enemies, who he says are relentless day after day. The enemy in front orders them all to kill Riku Suigan. The dark, shady beings run towards the mausoleum to attack him. Riku Suigan gets serious and begins to run towards the enemies advancing to attack him. He activates his power, which makes balls of different colors move swiftly around him. He begins to take out the enemies, whom he calls undead, with two swords of flames. The undead shoot arrows at him, which he avoids and continues to attack them, thinking about how the battle over the mausoleum started and how it would end someday. 1 year ago, in the summer, at the Shinryu Academy outdoor pool, Riku Suigan sits somewhere to play his video game. The game gets switched off by three guys who are pestering him and asking if he has seen a pink-haired girl. Riku Suigan replies that he hasn't seen anything. One of the guys begins to talk about Riku Suigan being the poor student who keeps working part-time jobs everyone is talking about. He tells Riku Suigan to do his job better and be more observant as the lifeguard. Riku Suigan tells them that he can't swim and that he cleans the pool. One of the guys walks to the edge of the pool where Riku Suigan's cat, Wanchoi, is and picks it up. He turns to Riku Suigan and tells him that he will just help him clean the pool as he throws Wanchoi into it. Riku Suigan hurriedly jumps into the pool to go save Wanchai. He couldn't swim and ended up sinking as he lost consciousness. Riku Suigan wakes up to see Wanchoi, who happily jumps on him to lick him and play with him. A boy standing close to the pool named Runsho asks if Suigan's awake. He turns to him with a wide smile, while Suigan looks at him surprised. Suigan asks if he saved him. Ransho replies that Suigan had already been pulled out by the time he arrived by Riku Ray. Suigan, who's scrubbing the pool, thinks about who Riku Ray is. Ranshu tells him that Riku Ray is the sole daughter of Riku Yuki, the vice president of Godgrave Tech Company. He continues to talk about how she got suitors lined up and the amount of presents she received on her birthday. He says that Riku Ray is the smartest girl in school as he cuddles a flustered girl in his arms. He asks Suigan if he does not know her, and Suigan nods to answer Ransho's question. Suigan, who's still scrubbing the pool, remembers how Riku Ray kissed him when he was underwater. He gets flustered and hurriedly continues his cleaning job. At the fight scene, Suigan continues to take out the undead with Wanchoi sitting on his shoulder. He looks at a giant undead appearing. He gets warned by Wanchoi, who screams to make him look walk forward. He sees more giant undead trying to hit him up ahead. He avoids the hits and looks around to discover that he is surrounded. He hits the ground to activate a spell named Thousand Graves. Large cross-shaped structures with glowing symbols on them begin to come out from the earth. It takes out the giant undead and some of the normal ones. Suigan puts Wanchoi down on top of one of the crosses. He looks down at the enemies from the top and says to the worried Wanchoi that he won't lose. The enemies continue to move towards the cross he's standing on, and Suigan reaffirms that he won't lose. He continues to think about fighting to protect the world and someone more important to him. He and Wanchoi jump down to continue fighting. Suigan thinks about the day he'll see the person again. Riku-Ray narrates what she saw when she woke from her deep slumber when she was little. She is lying on red leaves, lying around under a large tree. She narrates how the first thing she saw was a boy with an uneasy expression staring down at her. The little Riku-Ray tries to stand in the scene, and the little Suigan asks if she's okay. She asks Suigan who he is, and he immediately introduces himself to her. Suigan asks for her name, which she tries to say. At the cemetery adjacent to Shinryu Academy, a girl and boy drink outside together under the moonlight. The boy tries to act clueless as the girl makes advances towards him. She pushes him down on the bench they are sitting on and lies on him to continue her activities. She tries to kiss him, but the flustered boy tells her not to do it as he struggles under her. They both notice a shadow-like being looking at them and saying hello. The two of them scream as they run away from the area. Suigan looks at them and complains about the mess they left behind. He cleans up the trash and thinks about his job as the security guard. He talks about the advantages of the job as he sits on his computer table set up outside. He puts on his headset and switches on the computer to play the game named Dungeon Century. In the game, Suigan's character takes on an ultimate dragon of level 99. He knocks it out in a few seconds, which surprises the other characters around. The people express their shock as an old man's character comes out to explain Suigan's character to be a mysterious lone wolf who utters no words but defeats enemies with the lowest grade equipment. The old man continues to say that Suigan's character goes wherever he is needed and asks for nothing in return. Suigan's character name is Gwyn, and he's on level 180. Suigan outside the game smirks and gets flustered because of the things he heard from the other gamers. He also realizes that he leveled up as he checks out his character's stats. He thinks about the next dungeon to go to, but suddenly hears the voice of a girl asking for help. In the game, a girl is running away from a giant octopus-type monster. She turns back to attack it with her water magic, but it has no effect, and she continues to get chased by it. Suigan watches the scene and checks out the stats of the monster named Kickbacker. He enters the scene with Gwyn and immediately takes out the Kickbacker with an ice attack and a physical attack. The girl's character runs up to Gwyn and thanks him for saving her from the tight spot. She introduces herself as Ray. The monitor switches off as she tries to ask for his name. He screams and tries to put on the computer but gives up after a while. He looks at the streetlight he connected his computer setup to. He tells the worried Wanchoi that he'll be fine as he climbs the light pole to connect it well. Riku-Ray opens her window with a smile as she tells her roommate about the super amazing person she just met in the game she was playing. She notices a boy who's staring at her from a light pole close to her window. They stare at each other for a short while until a pillow knocks Suigan off the pole. He has a bad fall as Riku-Ray's roommate angrily comes to the window to call him a peeping Tom and other names the next day. At the high school building, Suigan cleans the glass of the building from the outside. He complains about being treated as a peeping Tom as he still feels pain from the injuries he got from his fall. He hears Riku-Ray's voice and looks at where she is. He sees her with a laptop, playing the girl character he saved the night before. She and her roommate discuss the game. Riku-Ray tells her roommate that the game was made by her father, and she continues to say that she feels like she belongs in the game more than reality. They both continue to discuss it. Rancho looks at them from a window close to where Suigan is working. He says some wise words relating to falling in love that Suigan doesn't understand. Rancho says that the boys at the academy consider Riku-Ray an idol. Suigan looks back at the girls to see them surrounded by boys who come to ask Riku-Ray out. Riku-Ray's roommate tells them that they are annoying. She holds Riku-Ray's hand and they run away from the boys. Suigan tries to ask Rancho if that is the girl he was telling him about, only to discover that Rancho isn't there anymore. In the evening at the boys' dormitory, Suigan checks out his character stats as he thinks about how he enjoys the fact that he keeps getting stronger in the game. He receives a friend request and a video message from Riku-Ray's character immediately pops up. The message shocks him and it makes him start to cough. She thanks him for saving her when she was in danger and asks him to be her friend. The surprised Suigan sits on his chair as his brain enters overdrive mode and releases smoke as he wonders if it's seriously happening. Suigan rides a bicycle to deliver some packages. He thinks about the time he and Ray have been together over the months to be like a dream. He looks at her character in his room as he thinks about how he always thought all he needed was to be in the game and be with her until she says that she wonders what he's like outside the game. She tells him that she would love to meet the real him someday. Suigan, who's riding his bike, stops and laughs before thinking to himself that they can never meet because of his poor situation in real life and how they both live in completely different social statuses. Suigan thinks about his only wish, which is to continue to stay with her in the game. He tries to log in but receives an important announcement that the game will be discontinued. He gets shocked and screams out. The next morning at school, the devastated Suigan struggles to walk. He thinks about the ending of the game and walks past some students who do not care about him. He falls into a bush and says that the world is ending. He looks into the sky still lying on the bush and thinks about his adventures with Ray. Ray's father gives her a package, and she asks what it is. He tells her that he wants her to hold on to it. He also tells her to follow the instructions in it if something happens. She asks her father what he means and what's going to happen. He replies that she shouldn't worry and that it's just a precaution. He walks to the window of the room they are in and says that the game, Dungeon Century, has finished its role as a prototype and that the new game is about to start. He tells her about what the new game will be like and how she found a new partner in the just concluded one. Ray gets flustered and asks if he's monitoring her. He gives his reason and apologizes for it when she starts to complain. Suigan kneels in front of a water pool in the school still looking devastated. He looks into the water and thinks about Ray's character in the game. The students around wonder what he's doing as none of them try to approach him. Rancho, who's also watching, walks up to Suigan with a girl who tries to stop him. He talks about the game, and Suigan replies to him that the world has ended. The girl, listening to their conversation, wonders what they are saying. Rancho tries to tell him that even if the game is discontinued, all he has to do is meet her in real life. Suigan replies that she only knows him in the game, and the girl with Rancho asks if it's a one-sided love thing with someone he never met. Suigan stands still looking depressed and says that they live in two completely different worlds. He walks away from the scene, staggering, and the girl asks Rancho if he would be alright. Rancho says some cool words which makes the girl flustered and say that he's wonderful. Suigan thinks of work and Ray as he continues to stagger by the roadside. A car carrying Ray's father passes by him, and after a while he falls to the ground. The person driving Ray's father tells him about his schedule for the day. At nighttime, Ray's roommate tries to tell her that staying up all night is not good for her health. Ray, who's working on her computer, thanks her and says that she'll be fine. The roommate goes to sleep and Ray greets her goodnight before continuing her work on the computer. Characters in the game world sit together in a tavern and discuss the discontinuation of the game. Some complain about how much they spent in the game, while Ray, who's also sitting alone, faces her drink. They start to talk about an item that grants any wish in the world they are in, and make jokes about using it to stop them from discontinuing the game, as they all laugh about it. They walk out of the tavern to continue the game and enjoy it before it gets discontinued. Ray sits alone in the tavern with the bartender and wonders if Gwen will show up soon. Suigan rushes to set up his computer at the site where he uses free electricity. He starts the game and goes to meet Ray, who smiles at him. She tells him that he's late and asks if he is busy. She holds his hand and tells him to go with her. They run together and stop after a while as she tells him about the game ending in a week. She leaves his hand and tells him that they should enjoy the adventures until then. She continues to run while Suigan thinks about a lot of things, like a devastated person who has now accepted his fate. They both sit under a large leaf plant that's shading them from the rain. Ray turns some flowers into potions and tells Gwen that there is something she wishes to find before the game ends. She gives him 2 of the 3 she just made and continues to talk about her wish. Gwen, who doesn't talk, takes the portions from her and accepts to help her achieve this wish. He extends his hand to shake her, and she happily jumps on him to hug him. They fall to the ground, which shakes the leaf plant shading them, and all the water collected on it pours on them. She begins to laugh as she lies on top of him. Suigan, who's also enjoying the game, thinks about how he can be with her as the water splashes around. Later that night at the Godgrave Tech Company, GGTC, they began an announcement of a new online game named Gravebuster, which they call the ultimate online game. The announcers continue to describe the game to the masses. They end the announcement with the theme of the game, which is reality that surpasses reality. One of the top officials in GGTC says that it is thanks to the genius game designer Riku Yuki that they can finally announce the game. Ray's father, named Riku Yuki, replies that it is just the beginning of everything, while the announcers continue to say the name and theme of the game. At the boys' dormitory, Suigan lies face flat on his bed and begins to think about Ray's voice telling him to come over. He starts to laugh while Wanchoi sleeps in its cat bed. On the day the game was released, Dungeon Century would be discontinued. Suigan thinks about the game's discontinuation as he washes some dishes in the kitchen. He sits outside thinking about how he's going to lose the only one he can connect to Riku Ray at midnight, while Wanchoi eats from its plate. At nighttime in the game, the gamers hold a festival to celebrate the grand finale of the game. Ray watches them for a while before running from the scene looking sad. Riku Yuta watches the scene from his office as the announcers in the game tell the players about the new game. He receives a video call from a lady who asks if he's not heading home yet. He replies to her that he wants to watch over everything until the end. She says that the game must mean a lot to him, but he laughs. He tells her to go home and not worry about an old man. She replies to him politely and excuses herself from the call. Riku Yuta talks about his goal to find someone and how it may not matter. He begins to wonder if he still believes in people as a type of flower shows up on his monitor. Suigan, who's riding a bicycle, rushes to reach where he can set up his computer because he's way past the time he is supposed to meet Ray. The bicycle gets a problem, and all the glass containers he uses for his logistic job fall to the ground and break. He also falls off the bicycle into the bushes. In the game, Ray, who has been waiting at the tavern where she and Gwyn usually meet, stands up. She turns to the master of the bar and asks for a favor. At the Godgrave Tech Company's security and camera room, the officials in charge are unconscious. A woman infiltrates the company. Ray looks at a field of glowing flowers and says that she has never seen such before. At GGTC, the woman who infiltrated the company points a gun at Riku Yuki and tells him not to resist. He asks her about what she's doing, and she replies that it pains her slightly to dispose of a co-worker. Riku Yuki asks if it's Ling's scenario, and says that it looks like his third-rate scenario. Back in the game, Ray picks some of the glowing flowers into her basket while the city is in chaos. A boss character kills off characters in the game and keeps on asking for more. Suigan hurriedly runs towards the place where his setup is while screaming out crap continually. The people in the city in the game run away asking that someone should save them. They run through the flower field while Ray looks at them wondering about what is going on. She notices the enemy sucking the life force out of the people it caught with its energy threads. The monster absorbs the equipment of the captured people and drops their lifeless bodies. The bodies disperse into light bits, while Ray, who's in tears, takes up her weapon and asks how it can do something so horrible. At Riku Yuki's office, the woman asks if he is not going to tell them how to open a tomb, while pointing a gun at his head. He asks her if she honestly thinks he would help grave robbers. She calls him the final gravekeeper and thanks him for his years of service. She pulls the trigger and shoots him in the head. Suigan, who has been running for a while, stood to catch his breath as he gasped for air. Wanchoi, who is ahead, makes a sound and stops running to wait for Suigan. He replies that it's okay and that he is coming right away. He continues to run toward his destination, which is close to the girls' dormitory. Ray dodges the energy threads of the monster. She screams that it is the last day of the game they all love so much as shoots some of her magic abilities at the monster. The monster easily blocks the attacks as a large tentacle comes out of the ground and disrupts Ray's stance. The monster says that it wants all the items. Its lower body, which is a massive octopus, comes out of the ground while Ray looks at it very shocked. Gwyn arrives in the game to see firecrackers in the sky and chaos everywhere on land. The master of the bar, who's under some of the collapsed building's materials, calls to Gwyn and tells him that he has a message from Ray. The master of the bar plays the voice recording of Ray to him. She says that he seems busy, so she went ahead of him and hoped that he would come soon. Gwyn hurriedly runs through the chaos-affected area to where Ray is, while the firecrackers continue to blow out in the sky. Ray opens her eyes and sees Gwyn holding her in his arms. She tells him that she knew he would come, and continues to say that he has saved her many times. She tells him that she wants to thank him, as she holds out a dying flower in her hand. Gwyn holds her hand, while Ray says that she couldn't find the evening song flower, and she apologizes to him. Tears stream out of Gwyn's helmet eye hole. She thanks him for everything, and says that it was fun. One of Gwyn's teardrops falls on the dying flower in Ray's hand. The flower starts to bloom and glow brightly. Ray, who is still in Gwyn's arms, asks if it is the evening song flower. She tries to say that it is pretty, but she gets dragged by the monster along with Gwyn, who is holding on to her. Ray leaves the flower in his hand as he loses his hold of her and falls back to the ground. Ray continues to get pulled by the monster's thread until she gets stabbed in the abdomen by 3 other tentacles of the monster. Tears drop from Gwyn's eyes as he falls into an endless void with the flower in his hand. Suigan sees the thank you for playing the Dungeon Century interface of the game on his computer at exactly midnight. His mouse drops from his hand as an announcement of the game finally being discontinued enters. The announcer thanks the players for their support, while Suigan looks down, feeling devastated. Wanchoi chases some birds away as Suigan goes back with his bicycle on a misty night. Wanchoi, who's ahead, runs further and stops making sounds. Suigan calls for it, but soon sees it in Riku Ray's hand, who's standing under a tree. Suigan says hi and walks past her with his bicycle. Riku Ray says that he was with her all this time, which makes him stop walking forward. She asks that he allow her to thank him for always helping her out. Suigan replies that he doesn't deserve such. He says that he wasn't able to do anything at the most crucial time, and that he couldn't protect her as his eyes got teary. Riku Ray puts Wanchoi on Suigan's shoulder and asks if he'll save her next time in the new game. The bicycle falls from his hands and he begins to panic about what he's going to do about the spoiled bicycle and how he's going to work. Riku Ray starts to laugh as Suigan moves around, panicking and saying things. Police vehicles surround the Godgrave Tech Company. An officer informs the higher-ups on the intercom that they have set up barricades around the building and the surrounding area. The officer continues to say that they are currently continuing with their investigation to take pictures of the murder scene. Suigan runs very fast past two girls who scream because his wind pressure also pushes up their skirts. The flustered girls look at him and wonder what is wrong with him. Suigan thinks about what Ranshu told him about Riku Ray's father as he continues to run towards the girls' dormitory. Suigan sits outside at the entrance of the dorm. He thinks about what her roommate told him when he reached there and how Riku Ray won't be coming back to the dorm for a while. At Riku Yuki's funeral venue, the men in suits set up the venue while some people talk about how Riku Yuki was his daughter's only relative and the huge debts he had from various places. Riku Ray sits in front of the hall alone, crying silently and shivering with her father's picture in her hands. Suigan watches the news about the death and funeral of Riku Yuki. A member of the Godgrave Tech Company says some words about the deceased and declares that the company will work with law enforcement to bring the culprit to justice. The woman who killed Riku Yuki watches from a hidden location in the hall as the man says that they will make the culprit pay for the crime. Suigan, who's watching the funeral program on television, sees the face of the deceased and immediately remembers the man holding his hand when he was much younger. He says to himself that he knows the man. The next day at school, Riku Ray apologizes to Suigan for asking him to come when he is busy with work. Suigan replies that it's not a problem and he tells her that he is very sorry. She replies to him that she is fine now and moves on to the important topic. She opens the package her father gave to her before and tells Suigan that she wants him to have it. She hands it over to Suigan and he picks up the paper on it that has his name. He reads the content of the letter and then proceeds to open the package. He sees a device in it and Riku Ray calls it a Seibei. She tells him that it is a console her father created specifically to play the new game. Suigan asks why her father wanted him to have it. He places some of his fingers on it, and the console begins the user identification sequence. The device scans him entirely down to his fingerprint and genes to complete the user identification. The device starts up the system, while he asks the clueless Riku Ray what is going on, which she replies that she doesn't know. A van enters the school compound as Suigan asks her why her father would give him such a thing, and she replies that she doesn't know. Riku Ray begins to tell him that she is not her father's biological daughter, and that she doesn't remember much. She apologizes for telling him something so strange, which he replies that it isn't. A woman calls Riku Ray outside the room and opens the door to tell her that she has guests outside. Riku Ray immediately stands and tells the woman that she'll go see them. She looks at Suigan and tells him that she'll be right back. Suigan looks at the device with a sad face, while the woman shows Riku Ray the location of her guests outside. Two men ask her if she's Riku Yuki's daughter, and they smirk. Suigan notices the device starting up, and a feminine voice welcomes him to Gravebusters. They show him the status of his wealth, which begins to count up and stops at 10 billion yen. He gets surprised and asks if it's some kind of mistake. A recorded audio begins to play, which makes him fret, and the device falls from his hand. Riku Yuki introduces himself in the recording. He says that he's the man who raised Riku Ray, and he is also his grandfather, whom he certainly can't remember. The man who gave the speech at the funeral on behalf of GGTC enters a VIP-only room. He receives a report about the countermeasures from the woman who killed Riku Yuki. She appears beside him and tells him that Riku Yuki ended up dying before telling her how to open up the tomb. He tells her that they just need to sort through his estate, But another VIP official interrupts their conversation by telling them that there's no need to worry about it as he gives the reasons for saying them. The VIP official turns to the other officials in a hall and declares that it is the will of their master, Dark Tiger, who's sitting on a throne with full body armor. Suigan listens to recorded audio where Rikuyuki explains the reason he left the inheritance with him. The first reason makes Suigan enter a dialogue with himself as he thinks of how life married to Riku Ray will be. The recording stops his delusion and tells him about how Riku Ray's parents were eliminated for the same cause. Rikuyuki continues to say that he took her in and raised her while protecting her from the enemy. He thinks about the words he just heard from the recording only to hear Riku Ray's voice outside. The two men try to force her into their van, but she screams that they let her go. She tells them that her father wouldn't have left that much debt, but the men insist that they would hear her out at their office. She continues to struggle as one of the men screams at her to stop resisting. In the struggling process, the badge on her uniform falls off and Suigan comes out from the dorm telling them to stop. He screams at them and tells them not to touch her. He runs out of the dorms and screams that they stop. He tells them to take their hands off her. Suigan charges to attack without heeding Riku Ray's words, but gets kicked back by one of the men. The man walks to where Suigan falls and continues to kick, and also step on him, while the words of Rikuyuki continue to run in his head. Riku Ray begs the other man with teary eyes to tell his friend to stop and that she'll go wherever they want her to. The man smiles and tells the other man beating down Suigan that they should leave. The man turns to leave after making his comment, but Suigan holds onto his leg. Suigan tells them to wait and that he will pay the debt. Suigan runs in to get the device he just got from Riku Ray, where he has 10 billion yen. He tries to withdraw 500 million yen, but the voice assistant in the device tells him that it is not possible to convert in-game currency into real money. The devastated Suigan throws the device away as he says that there is no point if he can only use the wealth in the game. He starts to think that he can't save Riku Ray again. He suddenly hears her voice calling him from outside. He looks through the window to see that she's being taken away in the van. Riku Ray looks at him from the window side of the van and thanks him for trying to save her. She tells him that it made her happy and she'll never forget him no matter where he is as tears drop from her eyes. She thanks him again as the van continues to move and their voices can't reach each other anymore. Suigan stands by the window devastated and thinks about Riku Ray's laughing. After a short while, he decides what he will do. The men in the van talk about Suigan being a strange brat and some other things. They suddenly notice him coming from behind on a bicycle. Suigan screams out her name and her badge that he is holding with his mouth falls. The men wonder what he is doing, but Riku Ray turns down the window to call to see him, while the man sitting by her side tries to stop her. Riku Ray stretches out her hand and continues to call for Suigan. Suigan also tries to reach for her hand as he screams that he will save her no matter what. He tells her to wait for him and replies that she will wait for him as tears fall from their eyes. The man riding the van steps on the brake, which makes Suigan go ahead of the van and struggles to get his balance. Riku Ray calls his name and the man sitting next to her holds her down and angrily tells her to stay out of it. Suigan continues to struggle with the van hanging behind him. He falls off the bicycle and tumbles while the van speeds off. Riku Ray sits quietly holding her knees, while the men talk about the possibility of Suigan dying. A Golden God Grave Tech Company badge gets thrown in the air, and a glowing man appears in the car sitting in between Riku Ray and the other man carrying her. The man in the car asks the glowing man who the hell he is, and he replies that he is Silicon Totems. Suigan continues to run in the direction the van went and sees the accident that happened as the van lies sideways. He sees the two men who took Riku Ray unconscious on the ground and another strange man holding the unconscious Riku Ray in his arms. He asks Silicon what he did to Riku Ray and tells him to let her go. Silicon asks if he's Riku Suigan and tells him that Temujin has a message for him. The message says that he'll be waiting for Suigan in Gravebuster. Silicon says that he has relayed the message and immediately disappears with Riku Ray. The van behind him explodes and Suigan falls to his knees, wondering how the man disappeared in the boys' dormitory. At nighttime, Suigan tries to switch on the console device in his room. He presses the button over and over again, but it doesn't work. He begins to wonder what is wrong with the device and asks if the battery is low. He puts it down on his bed and stares at it. He begins to remember the things Riku Ray and the recording of Rikuyuki said to him. He lies on his bed and begins to think about the Gravebuster that Rikuyuki created. He thinks about the guy that took Riku Ray away and wonders about where he took her with tears in his eyes. He continues to think about what he is supposed to do. The console device in between his legs on the bed starts to glow, and a woman in an appealing attire appears on top of him. Suigan begins to panic and asks her who she is. She introduces herself to Twin Star and answers his question that he called for her. The panicking Suigan tells her that she got the wrong room. She replies that he summoned her and she calls him Master. She calls his name as the ID, and he gets teleported into the game, inside Gravebuster at stage 34. Suigan lands in a desert setting. He coughs because of the dust that came up when he landed. He looks around to see the Gravebuster. He suddenly notices Twin Star lying on the ground unconscious. Her eyes keep rolling while he thinks about when she calls him Master. Twin Star's body immediately disintegrates, leaving behind two ball-like creatures that form her breasts, which makes Suigan very shocked. At a different location on stage 34, a guy holding his staff says that the stage is nice and quiet. A girl says that the sky is so distant, and another lady talks about the stage being a hidden one that no one has robbed yet. The three of them move on and prepare to start the grave robbing. Suigan touches the two ball-like creatures on the floor and wonders if they are the woman's real identity. They get blown away as a giant pyramid monster suddenly comes out of the ground, telling them not to awaken him. Suigan looks at it shocked and asks the panicking Twin Star creatures what the monster is. The episode continues with a quick recap of what happened from episode 1 to 6 with the theme, the story up till now. The narrator begins to talk about an all-powerful goddess who created that world. He says that the goddess gave her life to create many other lives. He talks about how the exhausted goddess begins her eternal slumber in an imperial tomb, and how her death left behind great power. The narrator says the name of the goddess was Banjo, and her myth of the creation has been told since ancient times. A giant pyramid monster yells out loud, and the wind pressure from the shout pushes Suigan, and the Twin Star guides him. The Twin Stars hide in his jacket, saying that they are just guides, and tell him that they'll leave the rest up to him. Suigan takes out the device he got from Ray, and the Twin Stars, who are now inside the device, introduce themselves to him. Suigan panics and asks them what guards would run at the line, but Monster replies that he's kind of tough. The pyramid monster decides to test if Suigan that he doesn't have time. The monster tells him that he won't be able to save Ray if he doesn't pass the test. Suigan asks how he knows about it. A woman watching Suigan and the pyramid paired. The monster summons a demi-human who says her name is Shastia, the incarnate of the desert. Suigan gets flustered as she appears. She asks him if he's young, Master Suigan, and he tells her yes. She tells him with teary eyes that she has been waiting for him. She calls his name and kisses him. Yuki putting a muffler on his neck when he was young. Suigan puts his hand on his lips thinking about the memories, and Shostia tells him that the seal on his memories has been successfully removed. Suigan begins to think about the memories and says that he was his Gramps. The pyramid monster starts to laugh and talks about Suigan remembering things. Suigan asks him who he is, and Shostia calls the monster her master. A section of the pyramid close to the top opens, and Yuki floats out on a swim ring. He calls Suigan his grandson and tells him that it has been a while. He says that he's happy to see him with a large smile on his face, while Suigan stands still, looking shocked. Ray groans as she sleeps. She has a dream of Suigan drowning, and how she enters the water to save him. She wakes up from sleep, and a girl in the corner of the prison room gives her clothes to change into. The girl tells Ray that it's time for purification. In the desert area, Fi orders them to take out the guardians for her. The confused Suigan tries to understand the situation, but freezes. Yuki says that he understands Suigan's confusion, and he begins to explain the times when he was the genius game designer, the vice president of God Gravetech Company, and Ray's father. He continues to say that his true identity is Suigan's grandfather as Suigan looks at him very surprised, getting the treasure in their hands and fantasize about what they will use the acquired wealth for. Suigan, Shastia, and Yuki enter into the pyramid. Suigan looks around the room they're in and asks for what it is. Yuki tells him that it is the cockpit of the Guardian specifically made for the hidden level 4. The explosions continue to hit the pyramid on the outside. Farine's weapon charges full and she immediately releases an attack that splits the immobile pyramid monster into halves. She celebrates her successful attack but immediately gets surprised when she sees a massive robot destroy the centipedes as it comes out of the ground. The giant Egyptian-looking robot stands and its eyes begin to glow. The centipedes continue to spit the energy balls at the giant robot. The robot stumbles a bit and Farron says he's all for show. The centipedes bombard the giant robot with explosions. It affects Shastia and Suigan, who are in the cockpit. Yuki sits on his floating swim ring thinking about the Tomb Guardians and Tomb Raiders who have fought over while Suigan holds his Gramps in his hands. He asks his Gramps what's wrong and Yuki replies that it's nothing. He continues to say that it's just his saved data starting to disappear and that there is no need to be sad. He tells Suigan to listen well and tells him to protect Bango's tomb. He says that it will also result in saving Ray. He tells Suigan that he is now the last of the Tomb Guardians as his body disintegrates in Suigan's hands. Suigan begins to cry as he thinks about his unsealed memories of them together. and suddenly notices a club sign in front of her. She asks, why, as the attack from the giant robot comes from behind. The attack hits her and passes through the club sign. It gets redirected towards Phoebe, who says no way as she watches it come at her. The attack hits her and she disintegrates into the air. AU asks Suigan who he is and asks if he's a guardian. He continues to say that he thought the Tomb Guardians disappeared a long time ago. Suigan replies that there's one in front of him and claims that he is the last Tomb Guardian as he holds some diamond cards in his hand. AU jumps into his mini cannon tank and turns it towards Suigan, who's standing on a cracked glass card of diamond in midair. He shoots his energy beam at Suigan, but it gets reflected at him. After all the fighting ended, Suigan asks if the test is over. Shostia says yes, and tells him that he has been acknowledged as the Tomb Guardian because he defeated the Tomb Raiders. She congratulates him, and he thanks her. He continues to say that he wouldn't have succeeded without her and the twin stars who are sleeping on his console device. Shostia, who's in tears, shakes her head and tells him that he is already a splendid Tomb Guardian. She thanks him for everything and apologizes that she has to leave. Everything around disappears, and Suigan looks around the void they're in. She tells him that the stage and her role have come to an end. She hugs him and tells him goodbye. She disintegrates into the air and wishes him luck in battle. Suigan thinks about Shostia and suddenly hears a woman laughing out loud behind him. He sees a woman who talks down on him and makes fun of him. She laughs and tells him that he isn't the last guardian, but her. She takes up her gun and shoots at Suigan, who gets hit. Suigan falls into the void where they are while the woman continues her laugh as she watches him go down. On stage 35, Golden Mines. Phoebe's team arrives on stage 35 with a new man accompanying them. The man tells them to listen up and begins to talk about his dream. He stands close to Phoebe and says that his dream is to one day get all the world's wealth to belong to the gold hunters. Phoebe punches him away and tells him to stop sounding cool while he is fondling someone's ass. She calls him a huge pervert and tells him to stop acting like the leader as she walks away. Farine and EU sigh and look away, while the man who's lying on the ground makes some squeezing gestures with his hand while thinking of his huge dream. The scene continues when the woman who appeared in the void shoots at Suigan and claims that he is not the last Tomb Guardian. Suigan falls lower into the void as he gets shot. He immediately wakes up on his bed in real life as the console device falls to the ground. He hurriedly checks his chest where he got shot and notices the injury disappearing. The device on the ground begins to ring. He takes up the device and picks up the call. The person calling asks if he's Riku Suigan, which he affirms and asks who the person is. The man on the call tells him that he is Temujin of Totems. Temujin tells Suigan that he'll be waiting for him in Gravebuster before cutting the call. Suigan tries to continue the conversation and tells him to wait, but it is already too late. Suigan receives a file on the phone and opens it to see an image of the unconscious Riku Ray lying on a bed in her school uniform. In the busy city, everyone looks at their phones. Two boys discuss the amount of divine coins and how it can turn 200,000 into 100 or even 200 times more. A young girl passing by hears what they are discussing. She comes up to them from behind and tells the fat boy that she might be interested in him. The fat boy asks if she wants to join him, which she immediately accepts and hugs him. The other boy takes up his phone and says that he'll pay 500,000. The girl leaves the fat boy and hugs the other boy as she says that she might be interested in him instead. In the game, the new man and EU check out the prey from the top of an area. EU tells him that the prey doesn't seem to be coming out. Phoebe sits under an umbrella looking into her hand mirror. She complains about having to deal with all the small fry, and she tells the man that she joined because he talked big. She asks him what is going on, and the man tells her to calm down and that they are about to catch a huge quarry. Phoebe replies that she hopes so, while Farron asks the man how long they are going to keep what they are doing up. He tells her that it's just for now. He begins his cool speech where he says that money is power in the world. He talks about acquiring a lot of money and making the people of the precious world acknowledge them. The flustered Phoebe and the others look at him and make his speech. An alarm starts to ring, and the man quickly runs to the checkpoint. He uses his scope to check out the prey. He sees Fatty and his friend with the girl who joined them. He immediately tells the others to prepare. He looks back surprised to see the three of them ready with their weapons. In the library at Shinryu Academy, Suigan reads a book about Gravebuster and how new members of the game first have to do beginner registration. Suigan reads out the process of the registration but gets interrupted by Rancho, who tells him that the meaning of something will become clear if he reads it 100 times. He tells Suigan that he's working hard as a fat girl stands behind him where he's selecting books. Rancho asks Suigan if he is reading about the Gravebuster, which Suigan nods to affirm. Rancho tells him that he is in luck, while Suigan wonders why he is in luck. Ranchu introduces the fat girl behind him to Suigan and tells him that she's a game freak who participated in the closed beta. The girl does a salute and Suigan tells her that it is nice to meet her. In Gravebuster, the fatty takes down a monster. He shows off saying that paying the 200,000 paid off. The girl praises him while his friend replies that money is power. Phoebe comes from behind and tells the fatty that he is strong. She tells them that she has a favor to ask while using her body to entice the guys. The two guys eagerly ask her to name what she wants them to do, while the girl with them tries to ask them if Phoebe and Farine don't seem suspicious to them. Phoebe looks at the girl with cold eyes and she immediately stops talking. Phoebe begins to act cute. She tells the guys that she and Farine found an amazing treasure, but there are a lot of scary monsters nearby. The guys imagine pervert scenes of Phoebe being attacked by monsters, and they immediately get motivated. Phoebe tells Farine to also ask them for help. The flustered Farine tells them please and looks away, which motivates the guys all the more as they comment about her. Phoebe and Farine walk the guys in the direction they want. The girl that came with the two guys calls them, but she gets ignored. She runs after them so that she doesn't get left alone. At Shinryo Academy, Suigan sits by the pool using his computer. He reads information about the current ruler of Gravebuster named Dark Tiger, and the organization he leads known as Precious. He continues to read about the Precious organization's wealth and how it uses it to control the game world. At nighttime in his room, he continues to read about how there have been forces fighting against them lately. Suigan lies on his bed and uses the book he's reading to cover his face. He remembers what the fat girl told him about Temujin of Totems. She tells him that Totem is a new force fighting against Precious. She says that Temujin is the leader, and he is a villain who is willing to do anything. She also tells him that Temujin is known as the terrifying man who devours everything. Suigan thinks about devouring everything that the fat girl says. He immediately picks up his console device to look at the picture of Riku Ray that was sent to him. He thinks about the probability that she would have been devoured by Temujin. He rolls around on his bed, screaming her name. Riku Ray sits on a bed and looks around the room she is in. Someone comes to the entrance of the room and tells her that he is coming in. The man enters the room and asks her if she's comfortable. He tells her to make herself comfortable and asks if she needs anything. She tells him to let her go. The man apologizes and tells her that it is out of the question. He walks closer to her while the little girl watching Riku Ray stands by the door. The man holds Riku Ray's face and tells her that she will soon never want to leave the place. Riku Ray struggles to remove her face from his hand, and he says that she is a feisty one. He says that it's fine, that it wouldn't be fun if she wasn't. He laughs and walks away, and she sees his name, Temujin, written on the back of his robe. At stage 35, Phoebe and Farine lead the guys to where they want. Phoebe tells them that they have reached the location. The boys look around, but they don't see any monsters. Phoebe continues with her act as she tells them that they were just slimed and got all sticky in the abandoned mine, which motivates the boys. Farine also says that it took 3 million from them, which motivates the girl with the guys. The three of them run towards the mine. Phoebe signals to EU, who is standing on top of the mine area. EU hits his staff on the ground, and the three people running towards the mine get caught in his cage trap. The boys beg Phoebe and Farron to save them, but the girl in the trap hits them and tells them that they have been played. The boys plead that they let them out, while the girl threatens to report them. The man who joined Phoebe's team makes an introduction, an entry that embarrasses Phoebe and Farine. He tells them that people call him Golden, Ryuzaburu, and Wild Wolf. Riku Ray's roommate shows her desk to Suigan. She tells him that no one knows where she is, and says that she hopes Riku Ray comes back soon. Suigan looks at the small drawing of Gwyn that is attached to a corner of her monitor. Suigan tells the roommate that it's okay and that she doesn't have to worry. He says that Riku Ray will come back no matter what. He thinks to himself that he'll bring her back no matter what. In Gravebuster, Wild Wolf and the rest of his team raise their cups to cheer at the lobby stage. They drink and celebrate their success of racking up millions. AU praises Wild Wolf for its success. Wild Wolf says that it's best to attack newbies who are stacked on cash. Phoebe tells him not to say such things in public, but he asks her why. She sighs because of his stupidity. Farron calls their attention to another player who is sitting on a table alone and acting weird. AU stands and tells the others that he wants to go, ask the player what's wrong. At Temujin's palace, a girl named Retret brings a red console device to Temujin. He asks her if it's completed, and she replies that it is. He tells her well done. She excuses herself and immediately disappears from the room. Temujin says that the device will let Precious know that they can be unpredictable. Koshiriko, the little girl assigned to Riku Ray, asks if the leader made the device for Riku Ray. The masked guy tries to stop Koshiriko, but she continues to say that Riku Yuki is dead, which makes his daughter useless. She asks why, and Temujin replies that she wouldn't understand a girl's worth or what it means. At the lobby stage, EU tells the others about the information he got. They were surprised to hear that his team was wiped out. They discuss the team and how it was related to Precious. Wild Wolf asks if the weird guy is the leader, and EU affirms it. EU continues to say that the weird guy said some insanely strong woman appeared out of nowhere and stripped them of all their belongings. Phoebe and Wild Wolf react about it, and Wild Wolf gives their view on what probably happened. He goes on to say that the leader must be someone as awesome as him. The next day, Wild Wolf raises his sword and declares that it's another day filled with mugging. He points his sword to the new set of people caught in the cage trap and asks them to leave their belongings. The captured people beg that he spare their lives and that they will pay him. Wild Wolf tells them that money is life in Gravebuster. He tells them that they'll be forcibly logged out and their account killed if they run out of money. EU compliments the line he just used and writes it down. Phoebe and Farine, who are also watching, say it is lame. Wild Wolf stabs one of the cage players with his sword and his financial power comes up above 50 million. While the player he stabbed searches for his armor and money. He gets logged out while Wild Wolf licks his sword and asks who's next. The gesture makes the remaining 2 players in the trap cage start to shiver. Someone shoots at the top of the trap cage and it immediately begins to disappear. Wild Wolf and his team are surprised while the remaining 2 players run away after the trap cage disappears completely. Wild Wolf and his team look up to notice the lady who shot Suigan when he was in the void. Wild Wolf asks who she is. The lady replies that he has something pretty interesting despite his lack of skills. The Wild Wolf looks clearer and notices that it's a woman. The other team members attack the woman, but she dodges all their attacks and lands in front of Wild Wolf. She points her guy at Wild Wolf but notices that she's surrounded by his team. Phoebe tells her that it's as far as she goes and says that Wild Wolf is their leader despite how he looks. The Wild Wolf compliments them and tells the woman to drop her gun. She smiles and leaves the gun to drop. The gun touches the group and a large trap encircles the people surrounding her. She jumps out of the circle and the others get trapped in the woman's trap cage. The woman lands outside the cage. She points her gun at Wild Wolf and tells him to hand over the goods. Wild Wolf falls on his butt with tears in his eyes. He tells her to wait a second and that they'll hand over their buster items as the woman walks towards him. He begins to list all the super rare items with them and says that she can have it while his team members sitting in the trap cage sigh. He tricks her into looking at the others and he stabs her from behind with his sword. He laughs and says that he's just kidding while calling the woman an idiot. His disappointed team members say what they feel about what he just did. The woman begins to talk about the Wild Wolf's sword that drains the opponent's financial power. She continues to confirm that the sword also takes from who has the least money. Wild Wolf affirms her words and says that he has 50 million despite how he looks. Both their financial power gauge appears. Wild Wolf and his team are surprised as they watch her gauge continue to rise above his own. Phoebe and Farine ask if she's one of the 5 players who have over 100 million in the game. Wild Wolf falls to his knees as his sword disappears and he calls her one of the billion players. She looks down at him and tells him that she wouldn't mind giving it to him. A massive gold bar falls from the sky which makes Wild Wolf and his teammates fret. The woman disappears from there and the giant gold bar lands on them. At the boys' dormitory, Suigan holds his console device and stands ready to log in. Twin Star appears behind him and asks if he's ready. Suigan nods to affirm and says that he knows where he needs to go. He immediately gets teleported into the game. At stage 35, Phoebe and the others in the trap cage get protected from the impact of the giant gold bar. The trap cage disappears and EU rushes out to find Wild Wolf. Phoebe notices the woman in a carriage and asks for her name. The woman replies that her name is Collector and that she's a woman who lives solely to kill tomb raiders. They bring up Suigan's ID information only to find out that hasn't even finished the beginner's course. The commentators say Suigan is 100% an amateur, while Phoebe and Farron look at him suspiciously as Suigan waves at the viewers. Mammoth Viking says that they are mocking him by making him fight an amateur after making him wait for so long. He immediately begins to attack Suigan, who only dodges. Viking throws blows and words at Suigan, who struggles to avoid being hit. The commentators begin to talk about the battle, while Twin Star complains that Suigan is hopeless. Viking tells him to stop moving around as he releases a frost attack at him. Suigan's lower body gets frozen on a spot, and Viking walks closer to finish him off. Viking tries to finish off Suigan, but his attack gets blocked by Twin Star. Takeshi watches everything that is happening while the commentators continue to narrate what is happening to the crowd. They bring up the Twin Star's information and realize that there's no registration data on her. The immobilized Suigan thanks the Twin Star for her help, and she turns to him to say that he owes her big time for it. Viking comments about Twin Star and says that he chooses her. He asks her name, and Twin Star begins to boast about her beautiful yet terrifying true form. The Twin Star releases some energy and transforms into the two ball-like creature form. Suigan, who looks disappointed, says beautiful yet terrifying, which makes the Twin Stars embarrassed as they claim they made a mistake. Vikings say they're cute. He grabs them and says they are soft like marshmallows. The Twin Star complains that he's gross, while Suigan, who's watching the scene, says that he's a freak. Takeshi suddenly runs towards Viking and takes the Twin Star ball-like creatures out of Viking's hands. Viking asks him why he did it, and Takeshi replies that guys are supposed to protect girls. He continues to say that he hasn't given up on fighting with teary eyes. Takeshi begins to remember memories of him and Mikan together. In Takeshi's memory, Takeshi is hiding behind a rock. Mikan comes to tell him that she managed to take care of the enemies. She asks him if he's hurt, but Takeshi doesn't respond. She continues to ask what's wrong. Mikan says that she's there with him, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Back to the present, Viking, who's behind Takeshi, calls him a brat and claims that what he said is well said. He tells Takeshi to hand over the Twin Star and get out of there. Viking begins to shoot some frost balls at Takeshi's back. Takeshi holds the Twin Star ball creatures tightly and says that he wants to protect Mikan forever. He says that he's not going to run away anymore, or will he hide again? Takeshi declares that it's his turn to protect Mikan, which Suigan sees and relates to. The commentator calls Viking a small man despite his size because of the way he's beating the little boy. Twin Star thanks Takeshi as it transforms back to her human form in Takeshi's hands. She uses her wings to cover him. She tells him that she's okay and thanks him for protecting her. The flustered Takeshi begins to panic. Lao Long exclaims and begins to make a commentary about them not having records of a user that can change their physical appearance freely. He calls her a humanoid grave beast, and the other commentator screams out that it's bad. He begins to talk about the high-level familiar that has appeared. The commentator also asks who in the world is the young man who's an amateur, yet controls such a familiar. Suigan, who's the center of attraction, laughs off the question while still frozen to a spot. Phoebe and Farron continue to look at him closer and suspiciously. Viking points his weapon at Twin Star, who's flying, and asks if she's trying to mess with him. He tells her that she's not going to fool him with her bluff. Twin Star smiles as she releases her energy. Bright light covers the whole arena, and she transforms into a giant two-headed dragon, which is an S-class grave beast. The commentators scream and begin to make commentary about the appearance of the twin-headed jade dragon as they shiver and panic. Liao Long asks why Suigan has such a thing, while Takeshi, who's on the battle stage, frets. Viking stammers and asks what she is. The twin-headed dragon releases massive attacks from both of its heads at Viking. Viking freezes into a brick of jade and immediately shatters to pieces. Liao Long pushes the head of the other commentator from his microphone and declares that the winner is the intruder team. Later in the evening, Takeshi, who's holding the prize money, and baby Snow Leopard, thanked Suigan. Suigan replies and tells Takeshi to send his regards to Mikan. Takeshi thanks the dragon lady and bids her farewell before logging out of the game. Suigan receives an alert on his console. He takes it out to check and sees Twin Star, who's naked in her human form. She asks if he's sure that he's okay with giving the prize money and Snow Leopard to Takeshi. Suigan replies that he's a billion player and that he doesn't care about 10 million. He asks her about her clothing issue, and she replies that she can't do anything about it until her energy charges back up. She complains about the real money he gave away and says whatever, as the console goes off. Suigan calls to his knees, depressed as he realizes that the prize money is real money and not game money. An object hits the floor and a portal opens. The commentators both wave at Suigan, who's about to enter the portal. The sad Suigan waves back at them with tears in his eyes before entering the portal. The commentators wonder about who Suigan is. The other commentator asks if he's a collector. Liao Long shushes him off the topic and reminds him of the witch who conquered the stage all on her own. Liao Long then says that he hopes nothing bad happens. Suigan enters a misty area. He asks the two guys in front of him if the area is the place for beginners training. He walks up to them and introduces himself to them. He tells them that he's a newbie that wants to take the course. He asks the guys if they are also there for the training, and says that he looks forward to working with them. The guy looking at him ignores him and looks away. The other guy with a headset turns back to notice Suigan. He walks towards Suigan excitedly, and asks if he is Riku Suigan. He describes Riku Suigan as a super poor student who does nothing but work. He grabs Suigan's shoulders and tells him that he never thought he would meet him in Gravebuster. Suigan apologizes and asks who the guy is. The guy replies that he is Sha, and that they are in the same class together. Sha makes fun of Suigan for always sleeping in class and says that it is why he doesn't know him. Sha moves closer to Suigan and asks if he didn't forget him, the student council president. Suigan replies that he remembers, but they get interrupted by the other guy in the room who tells them to stop being so noisy. Shaw apologizes to him and says that it'll be more beneficial if they all get along since they are all beginners. The guy replies that it's not necessary as he looks away. A bright light shines close to them, and a girl appears there. The girl looks at them and calls all their IDs. She tells them that she is in charge of the beginner's course. She claims to be their instructor and tells them her name, Rin. They walk around in a desert area and stop somewhere there. Rin shows them some areas and tells them that those are the remains of a tomb that's been robbed. Rin tells them that it is where their lessons will hold with actual battles. She continues to tell them how grave robbers defeated the boss there and looted everything that was there hundreds of years ago. They see some monsters on canyons as Rin is talking. Shaw, who's afraid, asks Rin what they are, and she replies that they are monsters called tunnel apes. She tells them about the strong and weak features of the tunnel apes. Suigan asks if they just have to defeat the monsters, while Shaw, who's panicking, tells them that they should work together and do their best. The third guy with the ID Titan tells them to stop so that they can begin. Rin laughs and tells them that they have started since they noticed some tunnel apes running towards them. Some tunnel apes jump on Rin, but she kicks them away with a leg-spinning attack. She moves closer to the guys and tells them about the Buster item as she summons a sword. Shaw and Titan show off their Buster items. Shaw asks Suigan about his Buster item, and he replies that he has one too. Rin alerts them that the tunnel apes are coming. They begin to attack the tunnel apes, but realize that physical attacks don't work on the monsters. Shaw, who's running from a tunnel ape, screams about the problem. Suigan kicks the tunnel ape, chasing Shaw away, and says that it had 0 damage. Shaw asks how they can defeat the monsters. Rin tells them the reason why they can't damage them and tells them that they have to defeat the elder of the tunnel apes. She shows them the Grand Tunnel Ape and explains its abilities. Titan sets forward with his Buster item and charges up the energy to attack. He charges towards the Grand Tunnel Ape and knocks away some tunnel apes in his way. He jumps to where the Grand Tunnel Ape is standing and strikes it down to the ground. He continues to attack it until he defeats it and receives coins for it. Shaw and Suigan express their surprise as they look at him from behind. Some other tunnel apes try to make the jump on them, but they get taken care of by Rin. Shaw looks at Rin after she defeats the tunnel apes and begins his delusions. He runs towards her acting like a fool and asking to be her humble servant. At Shinryu Academy, the teacher takes the roll call of his students. He calls Shaw but doesn't get a response, and he asks if Shaw is absent. The students begin to talk as they say they didn't realize because Shaw doesn't stand out. At the beginner's test ground, the defeated monsters disappear while Rin checks her console and smiles because of her gain. Suigan says that it's the end of the beginner's course, while Shaw says that it can't be, saying that he wants more time with Princess Rin. Rin turns to them and tells them that they have to defeat her to pass the test. She takes out some daggers and throws them at them. Titan summons a fish-looking familiar to block the dagger. Suigan dodges the dagger while Shaw, who's panicking, tries to block with his Buster item. Rin tells them that she used the dagger to gauge their powers as she begins to talk about Titan's familiar. Shaw looks at the familiar and questions him about it. He talks about how much he has spent on the game and how he still can't afford a familiar. He begins to suggest other probable ways Titan could have gotten the familiar. Shaw turns to Suigan and claims he'll protect him while saying whatever he wants. Rin calls Shaw and tells him to remove the dagger from his head. Shaw continues his stupid acts, which makes Rin shout at him. She orders him to pull it out, and he immediately pulls it out. He says that he's squirting blood as he collapses. Suigan checks on him, but Rin tells him not to worry while giving him reasons for her words. She calls Suigan and tells him not to her, to which he responds that he's not. She looks at his information and says that his item is rather unique. Suigan thinks about Rin's ability to view others' equipment while she asks him to bring out his Buster item. Suigan tries to talk out of it, but Titan immediately tries to attack Rin. She dodges his first attack and comments about his action, but gets knocked back. Titan walks towards her as she summons her sword. He tells her that they need to defeat her to pass, and she replies to him. He tells her that he lost his textbook and asks if it's a problem. Rin answers him, and they begin to exchange blows. Shaw, who's watching the fight with Suigan, comments about seeing the move somewhere before. He remembers and talks about the legendary Titan from a virtual fighting game. The scene starts from where Titan is declared the world's strongest. He is given a trophy as the people around cheer for him. At Titan's family mansion, the butler opens a briefcase to show Titan his father's congratulatory gift to him. He sees a console and asks his father what it is. Titan's father replies that it is Gravebuster, and it will be his new goal. Titan replies that it wasn't their agreement, but his father interrupts him by telling him that he needs to show immediate results. Titan grits his teeth and reluctantly accepts. At the beginner's training area, Titan, who's fighting Rin, asks the others to help out so they can end the farce and move on to the next stage. Rin tells them not to underestimate her. She pushes Titan back and dodges his attack. Shea gets flustered as he watches Rin. He begins his delusional thinking to decide if he's going to fight the princess he loves or not. He finally decides to fight as he summons his booster item. He calls to Suigan that they should go to the battlefield where he'll profess his love to Princess Rinko. He runs towards Rin and Titan, who are fighting while screaming Princess Rinko. Suigan activates his buster item named Raven Scarf. He tries to use his ability named First Blood, but nothing happens. Suigan begins to talk about the ability and how it works. Shaw calls Suigan to show off his ability. He does a hula hoop with his buster item to activate it. Shaw disappears, which gets Suigan thinking about what just happened. Shaw appears beside Suigan, who's looking around, and he explains the special ability that makes him become one with the wind. He tells Suigan his intention to use the ability to get close to his Princess Rinko and whisper his email address to her, as he hopes his feelings will reach her. He screams that he's taking flight as he flies towards Rin. Suigan, who's alone, says that he'll be discovered if he keeps talking in his stealth mode. Titan and Rin continue to exchange blows, with Titan having the upper hand. He punches her off a high area to a lower one, and she falls on her butt. Titan asks his familiar, Seaweed, how much HP Rin has left. Seaweed teleports to the front of Rin, who's trying to sit up on the ground. Seaweed begins analysis and says that Rin's HP is about 15%. Rin throws a dagger at Seaweed, who is about to give more specific information, and she continues to say that it's a crime to film a lady without her permission. Seaweed disappears after the dagger stabs it. Titan jumps down to the lower area and asks her what she's saying. Rin compliments his strength and tells him that she can't let him pass the beginner's course. Shaw flies towards Rin in his stealth mode from her backside, hoping that she accepts his email address. He gets closer as he uses his buster item as his flight's spearhead. He gets stabbed by Rin, who doesn't even look back, and she calls him a fool. Shaw falls to the ground. Suigan, who's worried about him, runs to where he's lying to hold his hand. Shaw apologizes to Suigan and begins to talk about not having talent and some other tear-inducing words. Suigan tries to motivate him so that he can get stronger. He thanks Suigan and tells him about how he would have preferred to use Princess Rin's lap as a pillow, and he disappeared. Suigan stands and says that he understands. He tells Titan that the fighting is pointless. He continues to say that Titan can't defeat Rin because she is invincible. At Shaw's family house, Shaw's mom asks how he feels outside his room doors, and tells him that she'll leave his dinner and cold medicine by the door. Shaw her as he opens the door with so much joy. He tells his mom that he made a friend, which makes his mom ask if he's still sick. He replies that he made an actual friend who he describes to his mom with so much excitement. At the training area, Titan's attack raises dust as he claims that no one is stronger than him. She tells him that she will not let him pass, and he shuts her up and says that he's in the middle of his routine. Suigan flies around with Shay's powers looking for something. He sees an abandoned mine and says it's probably the place as he flies toward it. Rin puts her sword to Titan's neck and tells him she admits he's qualified. She begins to talk about the dark thing in his heart, while Farine, who's sitting with her console, watches the fight and says the words that Rin is saying. Suigan asks Farine if she's instructor Rin as he deactivates the one with the wind ability. The shocked Farine calls his name and asks him how he figured it out. Suigan explains to her how he discovered when her clone precisely stabbed Shae in the heart. Farine tells him that it's enough that she understands, while the Rin outside turns a gummy creature. Titan looks at what he has been fighting with and immediately gets triggered. He talks about being a 3-time champion in a virtual fighting game and expresses his anger for getting played by a fake. Titan remembers when his father told him to prove that he was the best and not disappoint him. He tells the gummy creature to be gone, and he hits it with his buster item. Suigan talks to Farron about the decoy mirage she used, which is the ability to copy a player's physical appearance. He tells her that she had fooled them with her familiar. Titan arrives at the area and snuffs as he sees Farine. He says that he didn't expect the true identity of the instructor to be a child. Suigan and Titan receive the same voice message on their consoles that tells them that they have completed the beginner's course. The voice message gives them some information about the new feature they can use as beginners, which is the ally card. The card comes out of their console and Farron explains what it is and what it's used for. Suigan tells her that he understands as he tries to walk away but gets stopped by Farron. She asks Suigan who he is, as she claims that she has a hard time believing that he's a beginner. Suigan turns to her and says that she'll know when the time is right. Titan says that he would also like to know how strong Suigan is as he jumps towards him to hit him with his buster item. Suigan avoids the attack and the shockwave reaches Farine. Suigan tells Titan that the course is over, but he replies that it's not over until he crushes his opponent as he jumps towards her to hit her. Farron jumps away to avoid the attack, but falls to the ground as she screams that it is the reason why she doesn't want him to pass. Suigan shouts at Titan to stop, but he laughs and replies that he is meant to defeat everything in the world while releasing some energy. Titan runs towards Suigan to hit him, claiming that he's included. Suigan escapes the attack and starts to run, claiming that Titan is touched in the head. Suigan and Farron hide in an abandoned building. Suigan sighs and says that they can buy some time there. Farron calls Suigan to ask if he didn't take any damage, and he replies that he is perfectly fine. Suigan calls her instructor Rin, but she tells him to call her Farine. He asks her why she isn't attacking, and she replies that she can't do anything for a while after dispelling her decoy mirage. She asks him why he saved her, and he tells her his reason. Twinstar pops up on his console and tells him to leave the area if he has passed. He replies that he can't just walk away yet, and Twinstar starts to tease him. Suigan switches off the console and turns to Farine to make a bet with her. Titan breaks into the building as they try to seal their bet with a pinky swear. The scene starts with Farron and Suigan breaking out of the building due to Titan's attack. Titan walks out and tells them that he'll quickly show them who's stronger between them as he preps himself for the fight. His eyes turn red, and he immediately tries to attack them with his buster item. Suigan interrupts him by saying first blood. His muffler starts to glow as he explains his technique copying ability. He activates Shaw's ability, which Farine comments about. Titan tells Suigan that he won't be able to defeat him with a loser's ability. He charges towards Suigan to punch him, but notices that he transforms into leaves. Suigan calls to Titan from another location as he charges towards him with Shay's weapon in his hand. Suigan leaves a mark on Titan's face as he turns to leave and flies away. Titan smiles and thinks to himself that a loser's ability won't work on him. He tells Suigan, who's moving around in the wind, that he knows where he is if he thinks he's hidden. He notices and looks up to attack Suigan, who's coming down to attack him. He punches a hole into Suigan, but gets shocked as Suigan transforms into leaves again. He appears in front of Titan and tries to strike him. Titan does his best to dodge it, but gets a little cut on his lap. Suigan explains to Titan that he undid the Man of the Wind ability and tells him that he was being led around by his illusion. The word illusion annoyed Titan. He screams at Suigan not to mess with him and follows us with an attack. Titan staggers and falls to his knees after his heavy strike that Suigan avoided. Suigan tells him to surrender, which makes Titan laugh aloud as he stands upright. He replies that he can't surrender to someone like Suigan because he is one of the chosen elites. He says that he won't lose to anyone as he begins to remember when he lifted a trophy in the virtual fighting game. In his memory, the announcers declare him as the winner. Two guys in the crowd begin to talk about Titan's rich father and how the game was probably rigged with wealth. Titan turns to them and calls them poor bastards. He asks them to come up and fight him, but the boys angrily ask him who he's calling poor. Titan calls them filthy peasants and jumps at them to fight them in the crowd, while the others continue to cheer. At Titan's family house, the butler tells him that he gave the two guys about 3 million yen, and he made them sign an agreement that they won't say anything to the press. This makes Titan say that the guys tried to fight him on purpose. The butler tells him that he's the brightest hope of the family, which Titan disclaims and says that he can't even do anything he wants. Titan continues to say that he'll do what he wants because there's nothing that can't be solved with money as he laughs out loud. Back at the beginner's training area, Titan says that the game is all about money and he would just fight using it. He raises his buster item and upgrades it to its ultimate form. Titan's buster item transforms into a luxurious car which makes Suigan and Farine panic. At Godgrave Tech Company, one of the officials talks about the growth of the game since it was released. He tells about how the players have been taking out the bosses of every stage and claims that it's the final stage where they get past stage 0. He takes out a console and calls the other members of Precious in the room to get going. They all take out their consoles and log into the game. A narrator talks about Precious, which is an organization that has been the predominant force among the grave robbers in the battle that has raged for 1,000 years. He talks about their leader, Dark Tiger, who's one of the 5 billion players. He continues to say that Dark Tiger also has an upper echelon of 16 members whose assets are said to exceed 2 billion. The members appear in front of Dark Tiger at the Precious base. They all salute Dark Tiger, who's sitting on a throne, and one of them tells him that they are ready to conquer Zero. Dark Tiger asks about the preparations for the festival on stage 18 the next day. The man replies that he has emailed the transfer rings to all of the players. He says that they will also act as a repellent to defeat the weaker players. He continues to talk about what worries him, which is the fact that the number of Tomb Guardians on their scale went from 0 to 1 some moments ago. The other members talk about the appearance of a new Guardian, and they ask what they should do about it. Dark Tiger tells them to kill the Guardian no matter who it is. At Suigan's end, the Tunnel Apes cheer and scream aloud. Titan raises the engine of his car-like buster item and asks if his father is watching. He claims that he's strong, ruthless, and chosen. Titan says that he has more money and he begins to charge up the car's energy up to 100 million to kill both of them. The charge is complete, and he immediately drives at them with full speed. Suigan holds Farron's hand and stands in front of her. He says that it's okay, because he's there. Suigan holds on to Farron and says that Titan should hit him first. She tries to stop Suigan by telling him that he's a poor student and that his assets won't be able to match Titan's own. Titan, who's driving at them with full speed, calls Suigan a stupid part-timer and screams that he gets out of the game. Suigan reminds Farron of her promise to join his team if he wins. Titan hits Suigan's financial power and crashes. He says that he charged up to 100 million and a part-timer can't have that much money. Titan's car-like Buster item begins to break apart, while Farine asks him how has so much financial power. Suigan replies that he can't disclose the information but says that Titan's assets are now 0. They realize that his Buster item is going to explode, and Farine says that the higher the explosion is, the more money the user spends. A massive explosion occurs in the area. After the explosion, Farine tells Suigan to get off her, as they stay in a tight container to avoid the explosion. Suigan says that they can log out to leave the container, but they both can't reach for their consoles. Farron sees Suigan's face close to her, and she gets flustered. She threatens to kill him if he does anything weird, and immediately picks up her console to log out. Suigan asks if she can analyze other players' Buster items. She affirms it, and he says that it's an amazing ability. Suigan continues to tell her that he wants her on his team, even though he knows she has other friends. Farine tells him that it's too sudden, which makes him tell her to think about it. He says that he'll put his Seabay address on her console, but she says she has too many people's addresses. He thinks about what to do. They begin to feel the vibration as a carriage having 2 centaurs pulling it comes out from the ground under them. The carriage knocks them out of the container, which they look at and wonder what it is. Suigan asks what type of carriage it is, and Farron tells him to be careful, because she feels intense pressure coming from inside. Collector, who's sitting in the carriage, laughs and says hello to them. Suigan asks Farron if the beginner's course has ended, which she affirms. He then begins to wonder what the carriage is. Collector says that she found him. She continues to say that she's surprised that he's in the beginner's course area flirting with a loli. She calls his name and tells him he's not bad. Farine asks Suigan, who's dusting his clothes, if he knows the person because the lady knows his name. Suigan replies that he doesn't know her, but he wants to ask her something. He walks towards the carriage while Farine tries to discourage him from going. Suigan asks Farron why she's worried about him all of a sudden, and she replies that the lady is dangerous. Farron says that the lady is not normal because she didn't get any data when she scanned the lady with her probing eyes. Farron describes what a player with the divine tomb weapon looks like, and that they only have 1 divine weapon. She says that the lady has 10 as the carriage door opens. Farron says that the only person that has the ability is 1 billion players, the Collector. Collector takes her gun in her hand and says to Farron that she has a rare ability. Suigan stands alert and asks what 1 billion player is looking for in the area. Collector compliments Farron's ability and points her gun at them, saying that too much knowledge is dangerous. Collector pulls the trigger. The bullet aimed at Suigan swerves away from him and hits Farine. Farine falls to the ground and Suigan runs towards her worried. He notices that she looks like a plushy toy, and Collector tells him not to worry, that she'll be fine. Suigan is able to protect her the way he is, which is why they are keeping an eye on her. Temujin claims that they are protecting her, but Suigan tells him to quit messing with him. Temujin asks if he wants to save Riku Ray. He tells Suigan about the festival that will be held on stage 18 of Gravebuster. He tells Suigan what the festival is about, and tells him to go meet a player named Nishikaze if he wants to conquer stage 0. Suigan asks how he will meet a player he has never met, but Temujin replies that he'll find out when he reaches there. Suigan asks how it concerns Riku Ray, but Temujin ends the call. Suigan says that he has more questions as he sits on his bed. He begins to remember how people talk about his character, Gwyn, in the Dungeon Century game. He thinks to himself that he was cool in Dungeon Century, but utterly useless in Gravebuster. Wanchoi comes to him and jumps on him to play with him. Suigan says that it's been a while since they played together, and he hugs Wanchoi as he lies on his bed. The next morning, he wakes up to see Wanchoi at the window, making some cat noises to call Suigan over. Suigan goes to the window to check what is happening. He sees male students surrounding a girl and asks if it's a celebrity. The boys surrounding the girl pester her about what they want. Suigan guesses if they're flirting or bothering a girl and says that they are trash normies. The boys who are taking her pictures too ask for her SNS handle and email address, but she replies that she doesn't have one. The girl, Farine, notices Suigan from his window at the highest floor of the male dormitory. She calls his name and claims that he said he would save her. The boys surrounding her suddenly turn towards Suigan angrily. They begin to talk down on him and cuss at him while stoning him. Suigan hurriedly closes his window and wonders what is happening. He begins to think of what is happening, and says that the girl is possibly Farine. At Shinryu Academy's student cafeteria, Suigan begins to think about what is going on. He wonders why Farron is in his school school, and with a suitcase nonetheless. He asks himself if she wants to stay with him in his dorm and thinks of what he should do while she's concentrating on her seabay. Farron calls him, and he immediately asks how she found him. She replied that she works part-time as an instructor for the beginner's course, so she was able to see some information about him. She tells him that it's apparent he didn't want to see her, so she's leaving. Suigan tells her not to leave, and says that he wants to see her. He begins to think about what to do before he starts to think about how he's a completely different person in the game. Suigan thinks about the fuss he made in the game and how he's like the air that no one notices in real life. His thoughts say that his existence is empty, but Farine, on the other hand, stands out just like in the game. Some guys come close to them and discuss Farine being cute and all. Suigan wonders what Farine would think of him since she has seen how lame he is in real life. The maid at the cafeteria comes to Suigan's table to ask if he's not going to order, because he has been sitting on the table for an hour. She tells him that other students are waiting. Suigan looks at the entrance and sees some guys who usually bully and talk down on him. He immediately collects the menu from the maid to find what to eat, while the boys at the entrance complain about having to wait. Farine also demands the menu, and she begins to select a lot of food on it. Suigan wonders if she's a big eater and who's going to pay for everything. He checks his wallet to see a few coins and calls himself royally poor. The maid records all of Farine's orders on a payment service device and shows it to Suigan. The maid tells him that people pay before they eat at the cafeteria, which he responds yes to. He begins to think about why he responded because he doesn't have the money to pay. Farine tells him to add more, if what she ordered is not enough, which makes him reply that it's enough and that he has been on a diet. He looks at the bill of 20,000 and thinks about it only to be interrupted by the boys that always insult him. One of the boys calls him a poor student and asks him why he's eating in such a restaurant. He says that Suigan was going after Ray and asks if her dad's death made him change his mind. He looks into Suigan's eyes and tells him to get out because the place is not for trash. Farine interrupts him and tells the boy not to talk to her leader like that. She tells them that Suigan is her leader in Gravebuster and that he's worth over 100 million. The boys laugh out loud and say that she's hilarious. They tell her not to believe Suigan and that he's lying to get money. Farron replies that it's not a lie, and the boy turns to Suigan. He asks Suigan to pay for his order with his game coins. Suigan asks if he can use the game coins in real life, and the maid responds that it can be used. She explains the way it's being used as a form of e-money to him. Suigan asks how it's done, and she tells him that she will have to scan his seabay. The boys tell him to hurry up and scan so that they can prove that he's a poor bastard and con artist. Suigan takes out his seabay and hands it to the maid. She uses the payment device to scan Suigan's seabay while the boys anticipate the outcome they want with smiles on their faces. The payment gets complete, and the maid thanks him for paying. The boys get surprised as they begin to scream "no way," and also ask if the PDT is not broken. Suigan thinks to himself that he didn't know that he could spend the game money in real life. The maid says she can't get the exact amount because of the many digits in it, which she claims has never happened. The boys freeze and call Suigan a gentleman. Farine laughs and tells them that she already told them that Suigan is a billion player. In the evening at the boys' dorm, Farine climbs up the stairs with Suigan, while some other perverted boys watch her go up and make their silly comments. One of the boys calls out to Suigan. He tells Suigan that Ray is missing, and he already got himself a new girlfriend. Suigan tells him to shut up and says that he's going to save Ray no matter what. They call him a two-timer and continue with their silly comments while Farine looks worried. In Suigan's room, she asks if the Ray everyone is talking about is his girlfriend. Suigan replies that she's not his girlfriend. Farine asks what he means when he says that he would save her. He replies that it's a long story, and that he'll probably be putting her in danger if he tells her. He tells her that Ray is somewhere within Gravebuster. He claims that he will find her and bring her back. He continues to talk about Farine joining his team, but she interrupts him by saying that it's enough. She says that she's on his team and he doesn't have to thank her anymore. She picks up her seabay and says that they should go save Ray. Suigan affirms with a smile and says that they should both log in. They click on their seabay's screen and it immediately takes them into the game. Suigan looks around wondering why there are so many people in the area. Farine holds his hand and tells him to quit spacing. She tells him that there's going to be a festival as she pulls him forward. They enter a stage in Gravebuster that looks like a busy city. Suigan says that the stage didn't used to look like that. Farron explains how the stage belongs to the players after they defeat the boss, and how players rebuild the buildings there the way they want. Suigan tells her about the festival he was told about by the man who called him, and she replies that everyone knows about it. Farine says that the festival is for them to prepare to conquer Stage 0 and that the huge conquest is open to every player, including newbies who want to try their luck. Suigan thinks about Stage 0 and remembers how he was told by the caller to go meet Nishikaze at the stage. Suigan says out loud that it means that Totem will be there. Farin says that she doesn't know about his relationship with Totem, but they are very dangerous. Suigan replies that he also doesn't know, but they usually give him information, and that it seems Ray is with them. Suigan says that he doesn't know how to find out how powerful the organization is or where they are. Farin asks if he has never looked into the information on Totem, which makes him remember his guide, Twin Star. Suigan takes out his Seibei, hoping that he can get information from her. He switches on the device to see Twin Star, who's naked in her human form on the screen. Twin Star greets him and says that she misses him while referring to him as Master. She asks him what she can help him with, but Farin, who's flustered, asks Suigan, who's panicking, if that's what he's into. He tells her not to get the wrong idea and says that she's a powerful tomb beast. The naked Twin Star seductively asks if he's going to do things to her again and says other things that make Suigan look like a pervert. Suigan tries to defend himself by saying that Twin Star is only a guide. The angry Farin slaps him, calls him a big pervert, and says that she has lost all respect for him. At an eatery in the game, Farin eats lots of food, which makes Suigan ask why she's a big eater in the game too. Farin replies that one is psychologically connected with the game, so it's natural to feel hungry in the game. She continues to say that she lost a lot of HP due to his insensitivity. Suigan complains that she didn't let him explain himself before slapping him hard. He immediately requests to make his order and says that he's starving. The waiter delivers 2 bowls of instant ramen to his table. Suigan immediately starts to eat the instant ramen. Farin asks why he's eating instant ramen, and she tells him to look at the delicious food in front of him. Sujin, who's eating the ramen, tells her that she can't understand the value of instant ramen to poor students like him. Farin stares at Suijin and says that she does not know how much he has, which makes him cook badly. A player tells his friends about the new billion player that just appeared. The friends say it may be a rumor as they discuss it, while Suigan begins to get disturbed as he listens to their conversations. Everyone stands as they look like they've seen who they're talking about, which makes Suigan more self-conscious as he closes his eyes a little embarrassed. He begins to think that everyone knows that he's the new billion player and wonders if he should admit to it. The other players run towards them, and Farin asks Suigan if the others have seen an amazing player. The self-conscious Suigan continues to think about the situation he feels he's in, and says that he can't keep it a secret again. Farin asks him about why the people are so worked up, and he replies that there's something he needs to tell her. The players pass by their table, and some shout at him to get out, claiming that he's in the way as they continue to run towards the entrance. Suigan gets embarrassed when he realizes that the other players weren't talking about him all along, while some of them even cuss at him for being in the way. Farin asks him what he wants to tell her after the people run outside and tells her that there's nothing between Twin Star and him. Farin asks him if he cracked his head only to hear the people outside get excited. They both go out to see what's making the people excited, and they see the flying penguins. The flying penguins drop rings, which makes Suigan ask if they're getting gifts because of the festival. The players reach out to catch the rings and talk about how the ring will take them to Stage 0, which is the final stage. Suigan catches 2 rings. The players start to teleport to the stage as they equip the rings, while Farin and Suigan watch them. Farin says that the administrators know what they're doing, while Suigan says that he wonders what the people at Godgrave Tech Company are trying to accomplish. He says that it's probably not a festival if the admin is transporting that number of people. Suigan asks Farin if she's going to go too, and she replies that she will go if he's going. He replies to her, and they both put on the ring to teleport to Stage 0 together. At the Precious base, a member of the upper echelon tells Dark Tiger that everything is going according to plan. He tells Dark Tiger that all the players are arriving with the transfer rings. Dark Tiger affirms his words but says that there is still a guard at a boss at the base. He claims that they are very strong and immediately activate the revival of the Stage Guardian on a control device in his front. Suigan and Farin arrive at Stage 0 on top of a large pillar. Suigan looks around to confirm that it's not a dangerous stage as he looks down to see that the other players are still fine. Suigan goes on to ask how he is supposed to find Nishikaze among all the players around. The players on the ground level look around for the tomb guards. One of the players stays close to a wall and tells the others to go ahead and he'll hide there to keep an eye on things. A guard breaks out of the wall behind him to take care of the player. As many other guards arrive at the scene, the players begin to fight the guards, while Suigan, who's watching, says that they have a lot of different items. Suigan and Farin look at the portal at the top of a pyramid staircase. Suigan asks about the 2 people close to the portal, and Farin replies that she's sure the leader of Precious, Dark Tiger, is there. Suigan thinks about the fact that there are more billion players there. Dark Tiger, who's sitting on his throne close to the portal, says that it won't be good to have most of their meat shields killed by the small fry. He tells the man named Bushido to get rid of them. Bushido does as his master wishes. He takes out his sword and activates his ability. He immediately takes care of all the monsters with a large energy burst. Frail and Suigan look at them in awe and comment about Precious's power. Dark Tiger tells Bushido that it's time, which Bushido affirms, and says that he believes that the boss will awaken since the monsters have perished. The players in the low ground area discuss how they just have to defeat the boss since the guards have been taken care of. A large amount of water burst out of the ground. The water turns red and the players begin to wonder if it's blood as it spreads throughout the battlefield. A figure appears from the red water spraying out of the floor. Suigan asks if it's the boss, and Farron affirms that it is the boss of Stage 18, Aslan. Aslan asks for where the blood he seeks, precisely that he injected the oxygen into Aslan's body. He continues to answer their questions on how he achieved his victory. After all the talking, Suigan asks Aslan how to use the core. Aslan tells him to take it into Stage 0 and he would understand. The other players discuss how awesome Suigan is, and some plan to invite him to their team. Some masked men arrive at the scene, which the other players immediately recognize as the Silverbacks. The remaining players surround the area where Suigan is. Suigan exclaims about the number of players remaining, while they all talk about him being awesome. The other players continue to talk about Suigan. Nishikaze says that it's annoying. Farron tells Suigan that everyone is talking about him, and he replies that she should let them, and says that all he cares about at the moment is restoring his sealed memories. Suigan asks Aslan what would happen if his core is taken. Aslan replies that he doesn't need sympathy. He continues to say that he was defeated, and his job as a guardian will come to an end. Aslan says that he will have to go with him to Stage 0 for him to find out how to use the core. Suigan asks Aslan why there has been no top player that has come for him other than Dark Tiger. He continues to say that it's strange because there aren't any powerful players participating in the crucial battle. He explains why he thinks that way, which makes Nishikaze tell him that she's impressed. Aslan replies to him, and Farine asks Suigan what it means. She asks if it means that some super powerful player is hiding somewhere. Suigan replies that he thinks they've gone somewhere to kill. Nishikaze confirms Suigan's words by saying that the 10 million class players are logging out one after another. Farine asks why they are killing each other and not interested in the boss, to which Nishikaze replies that it's just the confidence of the powerful. Nishikaze continues to say that Aslan is an enemy that they can defeat at any time. Suigan says that the players were probably fighting each other to see who'd fight the stage's boss. He says that it means that he was lucky to have been able to defeat Aslan, or that someone set it as a trap. Some masked men arrive at the scene, which the other players see and immediately recognize. Aslan tells him that the enemies are strong, which is why he had to find Suigan immediately. He says that he probably wouldn't have met Suigan if any of the top players had gotten to him first. Suigan says that he understands and that basically, the high-class players hate him now. Suigan says that they should deal with the core first, which Aslan tells him to go to Stage 0 immediately. One of the masked men steps on Aslan's head and tells him to shut his mouth. He talks down on Aslan for allowing a little kid to defeat him. Suigan asks who the man is, and he introduces himself as Elder Baboon of Inbei. Elder Baboon tells Suigan to hand over the core if he doesn't want to die. Suigan makes fun of his group's name and asks if they are allowed to have such a dirty name. He says that he'll report the group and asks if he's the only one there. The other masked men reply that they are there, and they caution him for talking to their elder anyhow. One of the other players got hit because he called them thugs. They claim to be a reputable organization and decide to show everyone their teamwork, strength, and effectiveness. They begin to attack the other players in the area. Suigan says that they are not the good guys and asks Elder Baboon to take his foot off because Aslan can't breathe. Elder Baboon throws Aslan's head at Suigan and tells him to have the stupid mask back. He walks towards Suigan and tells him not to get ahead of himself because he defeated the boss. He claims that Suigan won't be able to stand once he finds out who he is. Elder Baboon sees Nishikaze and tells her that it's a waste to be with a newbie. He tells her to join his team and that he will take special care of her while looking at her chest. He tells her his ID and asks her to contact him anytime she changes her mind. Elder Baboon walks up to his team members and asks them to proclaim their motto and the rules of the game. The members shout out their motto, which Elder Baboon asks if it's terrifying. Elder Baboon tells Suigan to hurry up and hand over the core. Suigan replies that he hates trash like him more than anything, and he hands Aslan over to Farine. Farine looks at Aslan and tells him her observation. Suigan goes to pick up his broken sword while saying that he has to fight them to move forward. Elder Baboon's attack passes by his head and hits a pillar. Suigan thinks of it as a surprise attack and he calls Elder Baboon a coward. Elder Baboon says that he missed his shot. Farine comments about the power of the attack. Elder Baboon claims that he's going to show them a stronger attack. He raises a 1 million Shinryu coin to strengthen his attack. The other players present talk about the coin, while Suigan wonders if he can also strengthen his weapon. Elder Baboon calls Suigan a broke bastard, which makes Suigan ask who he's talking to. He says that Suigan is super poor and that he was lucky to have defeated the boss. He tells Suigan that he'll not be lucky again because victories depend on assets. He takes out his asset graph and explains what it is Suigan. The other players talk about the long asset pillar and say that they haven't seen such a long one before. Elder Baboon claims that he is that long because his assets exceed 5 million, which Suigan replies that it's not that long. Elder Baboon asks if Suigan is mocking him, and immediately orders the members of his team to show their asset graphs. The members all shout out their motto as they take out their asset graphs. The other players call them a super team because they all have over 1 million assets. Farine comments about them too. Suigan steps forward and asks if they want to compare lengths. Elder Baboon replies that their leader has over 100 million assets. Suigan says that he'll give it a try and asks how to use the asset graph. Elder Baboon tells him to get off his high horse if he doesn't even know how to use it and asks him to hand over the core. Suigan commands his asset graph to appear, which enters into the sky. The masked men all scream that they've never seen as they all begin to panic and say that it's stupidly long. Some people start to calculate how much there is while some say he's a billion player. Suigan asks Elder Baboon if he still wants to take the core from him, while Farine, who's behind Suigan, thinks to herself that he was a billion player. Elder Baboon shouts at his members to calm down and picks up his seabay to report to his boss. A mirror appears in his front, and a fist comes out of it. The fist hits Elder Baboon into the sky, and Nishikaze tells Suigan to stop wasting time. She summons her evil mirror which sucks in Suigan and Farine, who's holding Aslan's head. They appear in front of the portal to Stage 0. Suigan talks about the portal and takes out the key Aslan gave to him. Nishikaze tells him that they can't follow him in, and he would have to see what lies there alone. Aslan says that he'll follow him as he flies out of Farin's hand. Suigan tells them that he's heading in and immediately enters the portal with Aslan. Suigan enters a quiet and white area where he sees a tree with a hole in it. He stretches his hand to feel the red leaves that are falling to the ground. Suigan says that it feels nostalgic for some reason. Aslan tells him to consume his core and he will remember everything that happened there. Suigan begins to eat the core and he immediately receives a memory shock. In the sealed memory, young Suigan enters the quiet and white area with his grandpa, Riku Suigan. The red leaves of the tree fall as young Suigan tells his grandpa that there's a hole in the top of the tree. His grandpa replies that the ceremony is nearly over. Suigan asks what the ceremony is as he sees a little girl in a section of the tree. Elder Baboon lands somewhere and complains about his broken mask. A call comes in and he angrily asks who's calling him at such a time. He picks up the call and says some rude things before even confirming the caller. The person on the call says he's an idiot and asks if he doesn't recognize the voice. Elder Baboon immediately realizes that it's his boss and he begins to apologize. He asks the boss if he needs something. The masked boss says that he found out someone defeated the Guardian and asks Elder Baboon to tell him the person who took his quarry. The red leaves continue to fall as Suigan wonders if those are his memories. Little Suigan asks his grandpa who the little girl in the section of the tree is. His grandpa tells him that the girl has the same power as them and that her parents were killed by someone. He continues to say that he cannot stop the ceremony to offer her powers to the tomb. A bright light shines from where the girl is, and his grandpa tells him that the ceremony is almost over. The light becomes brighter as his grandpa says that the tomb will completely absorb the girl's powers, and that power will become part of the power that will protect the tomb. He tells Suigan that the girl will forget about her past and she'll become a normal girl freed from her former chaotic fate. The girl falls out of the womb-like section of the tree with some liquid material. The young Suigan hurriedly goes to check on her, while he ignores his grandpa's calling. The little Riku Ray opens her eyes and Suigan asks if she's okay. She softly asks who he is and he replies that he's Suigan. Her eyes shine brightly as he tells her his name again. Suigan asks for her name but she falls asleep again. Suigan asks his grandpa why she fell asleep again, and he replies that she just lost all her strength from the ceremony. He tells Suigan not to worry and says that it's his turn next. His grandpa holds out the core and apologizes to the confused Suigan. He tells Suigan that he has to take necessary measures so that the enemies don't find him. The core starts to shine, and Rikuyuki tells Suigan that he's not his grandpa anymore as from then. Young Suigan receives the memory seal while the older Suigan gasps as he gets the memories back. Suigan asks if those are his sealed memories, which Aslan affirms, and tells Suigan about how his grandfather tried to protect him. He explains how Rikuyuki saved his memories on Stage 0 in the fruit and how he used his ancient blood to create him, Aslan. Rikuyuki tells Aslan that the children will be their trump card and tells him the mission he must complete when the time comes. which is to reawaken Suigan's memories. Aslan asks Suigan if he now remembers who he is. Suigan replies that he does, and Aslan tells him that his mission is done. He bestows his power onto Suigan as a gift. The other players close to the Stage 0 portal area receive rewards for clearing Stage 18's boss. They are all surprised by the amount as they rejoice and smile about their gains. Farine also talks about the reward she received and says that Suigan should be back soon. Nishikaze replies that it's a little late to be happy, and that beating the boss first on the battlefield can sometimes backfire. Elder Baboon's boss asks him what is going on, and he replies that they are not a match for the guy. The boss asks if they told the guy about his assets and connections with Precious. Elder Baboon replies that the player this time is a billion player. Their boss asks for the location of the billion player, and he tells him that the guy is currently at the transfer entrance of Stage 0. The boss replies that he has got it and cuts the line. The other members look at the sea bay and ask Elder Baboon what their boss is planning to do, to which he replies that he seems very angry. The masked boss raises his staff to charge up energy and says that he'll end the billion players with his Artemis snipe. He releases the attack at the entrance of Stage 0. Farine asks Nishikaze what she means, and Nishikaze replies that some players don't like others killing the boss before them. Nishikaze turns and says that a very powerful energy is headed their way. The other players notice the bright light entering the sky, and they wonder what it is while suggesting what it is. One of the players with a device to his left eye tells them what it is as his device breaks from trying to gauge the power level of the attack. The other players begin to panic as Farine says that it's headed towards them. Elder Baboon, who's watching from a distance, laughs and talks about his boss's ultimate special move. Farine says it's bad because they let down their guard. Suigan walks out of the Stage 0 portal and tells the two girls to stay back. He stands in their front and receives the attack, which causes an explosion. The other players look at the affected area and wonder if the people affected can make it out. The smoke clears out and Farine calls out to Suigan, who stops the attack with his hand. Nishikaze compliments the new equipment he just got, and Suigan replies that he has figured it out. Elder Baboon checks the scene with his scope and wonders why Suigan is unharmed after the attack. Suigan says that he's back while Farine runs closer to him and asks if he's okay. Suigan tells her that he's okay because of the equipment he's wearing. Farine asks if he got them from defeating Aslan, which he affirms, and tells her about the equipment called the Bloody Armor. He tells her that when it's in effect, he has as much HP as everyone on the level combined. He talks about the amazing attack because it took a fifth of his HP away. Nishikaze tells him not to get a big head and says that the powerful one is the one who shot the attack at them. The masked boss looks at the area his attack hits and says that it's a great sight. He receives a call on his sea bay and asks if the attack took care of the trash. He gets told that his god-killing shot didn't work. He gets excited and says that he's heading there himself. He expresses that he hasn't been that excited in a while and says that he's going on a killing spree. On Suigan's end, the people hail him while some girls ask for his contact information. Nishikaze tells Suigan that all the players there were used, and she explains the point of the battle. She tells Suigan that the festival is over and asks that follow her to go see her boss. Suigan replies that he wants to make sure that Riku Ray is safe first and that he wants to talk to her directly. Nishikaze summons her evil mirror and says it's fine because she's feeling generous. Suigan sees Riku Ray and calls her name. Nishikaze warns him not to let her know about the battle in Stage 0 so that she can be safe. Riku Ray looks at the mirror and calls his name too. She comes close to the mirror and asks if it's him. Suigan apologizes to her that he can't explain the complicated situation yet. Riku Ray places her hand on the mirror on her end and thanks him because she knows he'll come to save her. Suigan tells her to wait a little and everything will be back to normal in a few days. She replies that she believes him and says that she'll wait just like how she did on the last day of Dungeon Sentry 2. Suigan says that he'll not let her end the way she ended in Dungeon Sentry. He says that he'll protect her for sure this time and also help her find her father's murderers. He shows her his raven scarf and says that he's no longer a no-charge maester, and that he'll see her soon. Riku Ray tries to say something, but is interrupted by the masked man who adopted her while the mirror connection closes. He tells her that Stage 0 will officially open in 5 days, and he will hand her over to Riku Suigan if he manages to survive till then. The scene begins at the front of Stage 0's portal. Nishikaze asks Suigan if he already knows. Suigan replies that he knows that he has to defeat everyone who's going to try to conquer Stage 0. She tells him that they both see a common enemy, which Suigan affirms, and says that Riku Ray's life is on the line. He says that they're in the same boat and declares that he will protect Riku Ray and Stage 0. At the Precious base, Dark Tiger, who's sitting on his throne, tells his people that the preparations to conquer Stage Zero are now complete. He orders them to carry out the plan. One of the upper echelons tells him that he's worried about something in the plan. He continues to tell Dark Tiger that the one who defeated Aslan was a stronger player than they had anticipated. Bashida, who's standing next to Dark Tiger's throne, asks if there's someone stronger than the monkey there. The official kneeling in front of Dark Tiger informs him that Randen Yoku went ahead to find who killed his quarry. Bashida asks if he's planning to ignore the guild's rule. He asks the official to order him to come back, but Dark Tiger interrupts him. Dark Tiger says that Randen Yoku has been wanting a Lone Star title, and he wouldn't mind letting him do as he pleases. Nishikaze tells Suigan that she'll take him to her boss as she walks away. An explosion occurs in between the players on the ground floor. Suigan looks at it and wonders what happened. The players around ask who the mannerless person is. Some notice him in the smoke while Suigan calls him reckless. Randengyoku asks for the person who stole his quarry and declares that he'll kill the thief. The smoke clears out, and Suigan says that the person looks like the masked men that came earlier. Nishikaze calls Suigan over that it's time to go and tells him that Riku Ray is just beyond there. Suigan turns to follow her, but an explosion occurs on the ground floor. Randengyoku asks the person who stole his quarry to come out, or he will murder all the players there. The players recognize that he's Randengyoku, an upper echelon of Precious. They all begin to run in the other direction, but they get blocked by another masked man using a big baboon-type strengthening technique. The giant baboon begins to cause havoc and murder players too. Suigan says that it's messed up and asks if he'll destroy everything around him if he can't find what he wants. He says that he needs common sense, but Randengyoku laughs about it and asks what common sense means. He claims that whatever he considers as fun is common sense, and he looks at Suigan. Suigan says that he's messed up, while Nishikaze tells him that she is heading to the fortress, and that the transfer gate has been opened. She asks him what he wants to do, while Farine tells him to forget about the guy and let them go save Riku Ray. Suigan walks towards the transfer gate, while Randengyoku calls him all bark and no bite. He points his staff to the other players and asks for the fool who stole his quarry. Randengyoku and his giant phantom baboon continue to kill the other players. Suigan walks towards the transfer gate thinking about Riku Ray, and how she said she would keep waiting for him. He changes his mind and runs towards Randengyoku. Farine calls him a fool and asks him about Riku Ray. Suigan thinks to himself, asking that Riku Ray wait a little longer for him. He jumps off the platform and goes down the stairs to attack Randengyoku. Randengyoku points his staff at Suigan and calls him an idiot and a moth to a flame. Suigan uses his arms to shield his head while Randengyoku prepares to shoot at him. He says that no one has ever survived his attack from that range and offers his condolences before making the shot. Farine shouts no as Suigan gets closer to Randengyoku's attack, but another member of Totem comes over to hit the staff and redirect the attack towards the sky. Randengyoku releases the massive attack, and the shockwave of the attack knocks Suigan away. Farine jumps down to come to check on him, and he replies that he survived because of the bloody armor. He comments about Randengyoku's destructive power as Farine helps him sit up, and he sees the masked guy from Totem. Randengyoku tells the guy to stay out of his way, but the guy ignores him and walks towards Suigan, while Randengyoku rants about being ignored. Farine asks the guy what's going on because he tried to kill them before, but he's saving them now. Nishikaze comes down and introduces the guy to them. She says that they've seen Purple's sword skip. Purple places his hand on Suigan's head, which makes Farine ask what he's doing, and tells him not to come closer to Suigan. He activates his ability, and Nishikaze tells that it's healing. Suigan comments about how the damages he received from the two attacks are fading away, and he says that the ability is amazing. Nishikaze talks about how there are a very limited number of people who can heal others. She talks about how people use familiars and herbs to heal themselves, and says that Purple is one of the few people who have gotten the title of doctor. Suigan stands and says that he heard there weren't up to 100 players in the game that have such a rare title. Randengyoku, who's watching them, laughs and says that he came to defeat the boss of the stage, but says that he's super lucky and tells his little quarry, Suijin, to let them continue. Purple takes out his twin weapon and says that he's enough to deal with him. Randengyoku calls him a weakling of Totem and talks down on him. Purple asks if he's done talking and immediately starts to attack him. Randengyoku blocks his strikes while Purple thinks to himself that the opponent is keeping up with him. Randengyoku tells Purple that his dexterity is weak and his strength is 0. Purple tries to strike his legs, but he dodges. Randengyoku tells him that his attack will never scratch him, but also notices that the number at the back of his palm increased to 22. He thinks about what it's for and says that he's looking forward to something exciting as he releases a wide-range attack. Suigan covers Farine to protect her from the shockwave, while commenting about how huge it is. Purple jumps out of the smoke and thinks about how he's using everything he has to dodge his opponent's attack. He suddenly notices Randengyoku in the smoke, who's preparing to shoot at him, who's in the air. Randengyoku releases a powerful blast at Purple, and he analyzes the number on his hand while still talking down on the ability. He claims that he won't get to know what would happen if the number goes up anymore because he's dead. The smoke clears out and he notices a large shield of ice. Nishikaze asks the new man in the scene named Beck why he showed up. Beck replies that their boss sent him and Non-Dead to come save them. Randengyoku looks at the ice wizard and says that it's pretty rare. He calls his servant to use the giant baboon phantom to break the ice, but realizes that he has been tied down by branches. The servant named Shuke tells his boss that he can't move and he doesn't know what is happening. Non-Dead, who's controlling the roots, sits on a chair and enjoys his tea. He tells them that they are too worked up. He asks them to calm down and come enjoy some tea, while Shuke struggles to get free from the roots, but gets dragged to the ground. Randengyoku looks at the ability and comments about it, calls him a monkey, and asks if he wants to continue, which makes him laugh. Randengyoku says that his skills are vastly superior, even with precious VIP members. He shows them his asset graph of 999, 9999, 999, and claims to be the closest player to 1 billion. Bashida asks Dark Tiger if he's sure about his decision, as he reminds him of the time when Randengyoku tried to steal his status. Randengyoku activates an ability that transforms him into a giant, and he tells the 6th billion player to show him what he's made of. Farine talks about how Randengyoku grew, and Suigan also comments about it. Randengyoku uses the staves at his back to upgrade his weapon to a form named Rikudu Rine Cannon, which looks like a machine gun. He tells them that he'll kill them all with his weapon that shoots 666 shots in a minute. Beck tells everyone to get back as he creates his ice shield. Randengyoku starts to shoot his machine gun at them. Beck comments about the irrational power and tells the others that his ice shield won't be able to last long. Beck tells them to get out of range, but Suigan replies that they can't with all the blasts. Randengyoku tells them that they're so boring, while Beck apologizes to everyone that he has reached his limit. The ice shield breaks, and Non-Dead immediately activates his Halo skill that summons Pentasonk Wood. Large vines come out of the ground, which shields them from the shots. Randengyoku comments on the idea, but says that he wonders how long it'll hold up. Farine says they are saved, while Suigan hopes that Randengyoku runs out of bullets. But Purple tells them that they can't stay there. Non-Dead asks the billion player, Suigan, if he has any ideas. Suigan says that he has a question, and they all come close to him. He tells them that Randengyoku can become a billion player if he kills one more Gravebuster and asks why he isn't one yet. Nishikaze asks him why he's asking a stupid question at such a time. Beck says that he will answer the question. He introduces himself to Suigan, and they shake hands, while Suigan thanks him for his help. Beck begins to explain what happens when a player's assets are near a billion. He says that there are 10 players currently nearing that critical point. He says that Randengyoku is one of them, while Randengyoku continues to shoot at them on the outside, releasing some monkey-like bullet shells as he shoots. Farin begins to talk about how he's been like that since the closed test, and says that he needs a Lone Star grade title to get past his critical point. Suigan remembers how he got the Lone Star grade title when he got his Seibei from his grandpa. Suigan asks if it can be transferred to another player, which Purple answers. He says that it can't be transferred and claims that it's like an occupation while explaining how it works. Purple also talks about how people get the rare titles by completing difficult quests, and he tells them how he got his title. He also tells them about Non-Dead's title, Element Master, which is one of the 10 legendary levels. He tells them that they can look at the titles list to find out how to get them, but it doesn't say how to get a Lone Star title. Randengyoku continues to shoot at the Vine Shield and says that the Lone Star title will finally be his. He remembers when he asked Dark Tiger to tell him how to get a Lone Star title. Randengyoku says that he has killed over 100 high-level players, but it didn't work. He then asks if he can get it if he kills a million player with a Lone Star title. Bashida tells him not to do anything stupid and says that he doesn't stand a chance. Randengyoku says that he just wants to clear something up and asks the boss for a chance to challenge one of the billion players. He asks if the boss won't stop him. Purple tells Suigan and the others about the uniqueness of the Lone Star title. He says that there's only one for each, and they have a tremendous corresponding power. He tells them that the Lone Star title gives them the powers that can break the rules of the game. Suigan thinks about what Purple said and begins to talk about Collector, who's able to have 10 items. He asks them about the title of Grave Guardian, and Non-Dead immediately interrupts him to tell them that the enemy's blasts have stopped. He asks if someone will go and check, and Nishikaze volunteers to go. Beck tells them to wait and not do anything rash, but Nishikaze immediately goes out of the Vine Dome to check out what's going on outside. Elder Baboon tries to help Shuke, who's still held down by vines even after his baboon phantom disappears. Elder Baboon talks about their boss's weapon recharge time and says that they have to wait for 3 minutes. Randengyoku says that his shots will get 6 times stronger after the cooldown time, and even a billion player will be finished. Beck asks Suigan if he doesn't know what his title's special powers are. Suigan replies that he got the title, but didn't get any information about it, and says that he has a plan. Beck asks what the plan is, and says that they don't know what their enemy would do. Suigan says it's fine if they can't, and claims that he just has to see it with his eyes. Suigan activates his raven scarf. Riku Ray, who's at Totem's base, thinks about how Suigan is probably fighting and how she wanted to be by his side. She apologizes and begs him not to lose. 3 minutes pass and Randengyoku proclaims that his weapon's energy recharge is complete. He declares the start of the final round, but notices Nishikaze, who's flying on her flying platform. He asks what a little girl like her can do, and he begins to shoot at her and the Vine Dome. Nishikaze realizes that his attacks are stronger as they break her defense and the Vine Shield. Nishikaze falls off her mirror into the broken dome. Suigan tells the other to get back as he stretches out his hands to catch Nishikaze. He activates a purple eye while Randengyoku continues to shoot at them after breaking their defenses. After shooting for a while, Randengyoku stops shooting and says that they probably have been blown into smithereens. He declares that he has killed a billion player, while Elder Baboon and Shuke praise him. The smoke clears out, and Suigan asks if he thought he had won, while holding the unconscious Nishikaze in his arms. Suigan says that none of them have logged out, which makes Randengyoku say that he wondered why he didn't see any system message. Farine asks what happened. Non-Dead admits that he didn't see what Suigan did, and he asks him to explain what he did. Suigan turns to them and begins to explain how the Raven Scarf works. He tells them about the purple jewel he chose this time and the ability he got from it. Beck questions him about just strengthening his eyes and suggests that his shadow probably got strengthened. Suigan explains how he used his eye, Saturn, to protect them from all the shots and his shadow's ability to go to different directions at once. Suigan turns to Randengyoku and tells him that he can't win. Randengyoku laughs aloud and says that he won't lose easily, because he is one of Precious VIPs. He tells them that all the monkey bullets spread across the ground are bombs, and says that they should all die together. Nishikaze tells him to stop what he has lost. She tells him to stop his futile struggle, but he replies that he doesn't care as long as he can fight to the fullest. Nishikaze says that she'll give him a chance to challenge her boss, Temujin, if he loves fighting that much. Randengyoku thinks about Temujin and immediately stops. Suigan asks why he stopped after hearing the name. Farine tells him that Temujin is the totem's leader, and also a billion player. Randengyoku transforms to his normal size and tells Suigan that he still wants to keep fighting him, but also highlights the benefits of defeating Temujin. They all stand in a misty area, right in front of a fortress's gate. Suigan looks at the fortress and says that it is where Temujin is. He asks Riku Ray if she's there and thinks of her for a while. He tells the others to let them go to Temujin as he moves forward. Temujin, who's sitting alone in a void room, looks back and his left eye glows.